10. Good morning. Here are your sports headlines on talkSPORT. Ben Stokes says he'd love to be England coach one day, but absolutely will not be reversing his retirement decision.
It got to that point where I was just feel like I couldn't move without anything. Really, eyes are always on constantly. You just sort of, it was horrible. But now I just feel I can do things that sort of don't have to worry about people being there.
Speaking on For the Love of Cricket podcast, Stokes suggested Harry Brooks should have succeeded him as skipper, and that while he wishes Joe Root all the best, he's concerned about him after what he went through at the end of his last captaincy tenure 5 years ago. Stokes also says he has no regrets about opening the batting and slogging in his final test match when New Zealand had profited from measured batting.
You've got to commit to something. Now, obviously, we got bowled out in the way that we did, and it ended in a way that we didn't like. We were devastated. But again, if we'd gone about it a different way and got bowled out, it probably would have been the wrong way to take it on anyway. It's just how it is.
Elsewhere on X, formerly Twitter, FIFA have hit back at The Times' claim that Gianni Infantino has made multiple calls to Donald Trump to save his skin as FIFA president. They've called the claims pure fiction. We understand West Ham shareholder and Royal Mail owner David Kretinsky is moving to block Amanda Staveley from getting on the board at the club, but the Staveley consortium says the deal is all agreed in principle. And despite a checkered recent history with his boyhood club, Marcus Rashford can still have a strong future at Old Trafford, according to Fergie's former assistant René Moulenstein, who says the fans will be 50-50 about it.
They may be left a little bit some feelings they're not too happy about, but other ones will say, listen, if Marcus comes in, he performs, he scores a few important goals, then everybody jumps in the bandwagon again.
There's more as ever at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
1,000 sex offenders have been removed from the early prison release scheme, and women under 50 at risk of breast cancer are not being referred. Sinead has more at 10:30.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. Keep summer journeys safe. Visit your local centre or quickfit.com to book your tyres, MOTs and servicing so you can drive away happy every time.
Patchy rain in northern areas with a risk of hail and thunder across Northern Ireland. Scattered showers elsewhere, mainly in western areas. Dry in the south with warm temperatures.
Good morning, this is White and Jordan with me, Alex Crook, alongside the Peterborough chairman, Darragh MacAnthony, in for Jim and Simon this morning, and we have a very busy show for you. Coming up, we'll be discussing Liverpool and why they've regressed so much in just a year. We'll also be asking whether Mauricio Pochettino is still an attractive commodity following news he's extended his contract with the US men's national team until the 2030 World Cup. Meantime, Ben Stokes has finally broken his silence following his departure as England Test captain. The Sun's cricket correspondent John Etheridge will join us for more on that. We'll also be running you through all the latest transfer news. Plus, according to reports in The Guardian, Charlton are up for sale, looking for a fifth owner in just 6 years. Why has the club become so unstable at the top? So much to get stuck into this morning, right here on talkSPORT. It's Crook and MacAnthony.
100% engagement.
Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
And a reminder, as well as listening to us, you can watch the show in all its glory. Watch talkSPORT on LG channels, Prime Video, Samsung TV Plus, Roku and Rakuten, as well as YouTube and within the talkSPORT app, wherever you watch. We are there. And Darragh MacAnthony looking, well, just a little bit hot and bothered this morning. I saw you locked in conversation downstairs on the phone outside the building.
Agents. Honestly, I'm on a tube, a train, talking with agents. But listen, I'm here to help the ratings, so happy to be back.
Are you close to signing any players? Peterborough fans will be waiting.
Yeah, no. They're out with pitchforks. It's really frustrating because, fans are accusing me of losing my nerve on signing players because of, maybe a bad window a couple of years ago. They're accusing us of not doing it for money. Yes, we are actively trying to sign players, but there are players I want, and there are players that we maybe want, but the ones we want, we don't want to skip and go to the next plan because we haven't had no's on the ones we want, and we feel very confident. But we've had to wait like 4 weeks for various reasons, and if we sign them, I can talk about the reasons why, not reasons on our club or me, but just to do with tours, teams bringing in their own players before players can go out. So yeah, I've been working like non-stop, but I'm confident we'll get signings. Obviously, our fans, think we don't have any players at the moment at our football club, which is the way it goes with football fans if there's no signings. And it's probably the longest we've gone without signing a player. I think it's a whole month since we signed our 4th or 5th player of the window. So that's obviously causing a lot of anxiety. Podcasts, pitchforks, people coming for me. But yeah, it's we will be signing some very good players.
And on a bigger level, Liverpool having the same frustrations in the transfer market. You're obviously a Liverpool fan. I've got the Liverpool squad list here, and it does look like, particularly in those defensive areas, when you take Joe Gomez's injury into account, obviously Lione and Xhaka are going to be two very good young players, I think, but also coming off the back of injury. Tsimikas is back there as a backup left back to Kirkes, but maybe they need a bit more strength in that department. Frimpong, the only fit right back. Not replaced Mo Salah as yet. Obviously walked away from the Andy Amonde deal because that was too expensive. Are you a little bit apprehensive only a couple of weeks before the Premier League season starts?
I get the Liverpool angst about defence. It's similar to Peterborough, actually. Two of our main central defenders, who are our highest paid players at our club, haven't played all pre-season. We knew that going into pre-season, but they are fit and ready for next week. Liverpool have got a couple of 40, 50 million pound centre-backs. One did an ACL, and he's now obviously in coming back to fitness, and the other one is the French boy. They are wonderful signings. Gomez will be out for a couple of months with a muscle injury. So what do? Do you sign an 8 centre-half and eat up a big part of your budget, which maybe takes away from you signing that right winger you want or that central midfielder you want? So it's a balancing act. Look, Liverpool are short definitely in wide areas. They're definitely short, I would say, in the central midfield possibly. And I watched the Leeds game the other night. I loved the first half, hated the second half, but it's pre-season. Barry Fry once said to me, pay no attention to pre-season. It's just ignore it. It's about minutes. It's about fitness. My fans were coming for me on Saturday when West Brom beat us 2-0. West Brom are probably going to be top 10 in the champ this year. They've spent a few quid. They look drive me mad. But against the side that would be very good, I was very impressed with our young team. And our fans came away from it that we're doomed, we're done. It's West Brom.
That was just Adrian Durham.
No, Adrian Durham, he was fair in his criticism, to be fair. And he actually emailed me during the game to say he was across the way watching the game. And he said, we need to sign players that way. I'm like, well, of course, Captain Obvious, of course. And that's what I'm going to do. But
why does he email you, by the way? Do you not let him have your phone number? It's quite an old school way of communicating.
Yeah, I don't think he does have my phone number. I think you have my phone number, but he doesn't for whatever reason. But he does email me. He always I get emails in the middle of the night. I'm in Florida for the World Cup. Where are you? I'm in the UK. So my point is that, we'd beaten York 3 days before. We were one of the favourites for League Two. 3 days later, you lose to West Brom. So I guess everyone reacts to pre-season differently. Yeah. The window's a long window. There's still time in the window. The Premier League's not starting for another 3 weeks. Areola knows he's got a lot of work to do. I trust in what he can do, because the good news about Areola is he went through this with Bournemouth. He lost the whole back four.
Yeah.
And he had some late signings at Bournemouth, and look how they turned out, and look what he did. And I'm pretty sure with the Liverpool ownership, I can be critical of any ownership, including my own, that over the years they've spent money and they've won a couple of league titles. Last year they spent nearly £500 million. You could argue that maybe they overspent in some areas and should have spent in others.
But that's hindsight. Nobody was criticising the window at the
100% everyone thought we'd walk the league. Yeah. And this is football 12 months later, where everyone thinks now we're the worst top 6 team in the Premier League. So I dare say Liverpool will look very different by the time the window closes.
Let's hear from Dominic Szoboszlai, shall we? He was speaking ahead of that recent friendly against Leeds, and he discussed the Liverpool squad depth.
I think I can talk from everybody's side that we want to be successful this season. It's a long term, because obviously we have a new manager. The team has been changed, and it's maybe not in a couple of months, but in the long term, I think it will work out.
In the long term, it will work, says Dominic.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not a mug. He's just signed a new long-term deal. He sees what's going on. And by the way, they've got a lot of young talent in that squad. I know everyone's trying to say they need 10 new pieces or whatever else, but they still have a lot of good young players.
Feels like it could be a big year for Nguema, bearing in mind they're trying to sign wide players, but they haven't yet managed to get anyone.
He will be a sensation this year. I'll make a prediction that he'll win Young Player of the Year in the Premier League, without a doubt. And they're probably more confident because of him and because he can play left and right side. If he's not starting.
Do you think that's why they're relaxed?
Absolutely.
Signings up top.
What would you pay to go and sign a 7? You talk about Diamonde and the money that's talked about him. I would even debate and argue that he'll have a better career.
And he's only a little bit older than Diamonde.
Rio will have a better career than him, in my opinion. And I think he's going to be an absolute sensation. And that's probably why out wide. And that, look, I agree with Carragher where he said the right side. That's why I'm not so over the top on Barcola. I think we need a right side winger. We do. And we've got the Spanish boy coming in as well. So I'm worried about the right. I'm not so worried about the other side. And to be fair, Isak looked pretty fit in that game. They've got holes to fill. I think they'll fill them. I would expect at least 3 signings before the end of the window. And if they're the right signings and everyone comes back fit, they won't have an issue.
And actually, if you look at the transfer window, and you talked about this when we were in last week, July was very quiet, one of the quietest in recent memory because of the World Cup, and everybody was distracted by that.
Delayed.
Also, actually, if you just look at the transfer market in general, yes, we've had some blockbuster deals. We've had British record signings in Elliot Anderson and Morgan Rogers. But actually, if you go beneath that, there's a lot of clubs with business still to do. Manchester United fans would tell you they need 2 or 3 players still. Arsenal, relatively quiet so far in the window.
It's just Chelsea and Tottenham that are kind of the Harlem Globetrotters going out and signing players at the moment. And if you trickle down the league, we were saying this the other day, we're speaking to a couple of League One clubs. A lot of clubs in League One and League Two, it's a loan city. You're just seeing loans all over the place now because the Prem teams have come back from tour, all the young players now being released to go out on loan, but you're not seeing massive amounts of permanent signings. So the trickle effect hasn't really started yet, but I think it will. It'll ramp up.
Liverpool fans want to get your view on this. How are you feeling ahead of the start of the new Premier League season? 03717 22 33 44. You can text us 81089 as well. One of the questions that the producer wanted to put in the script was why have Liverpool regressed so much in a year? They won the title by 10 points under Arne Slot in his first season. They finished 24 points worse off last season. What do you put that down to?
Yeah, it was a terrible defence of the title. I put it down to, I would blame the manager, the previous manager as part of that. I would say the complacency set in. Complacency is a horrible word. It's very difficult to go back to back. I think the expectation probably overran them last summer when they signed so many players. Too many of those players came late in the window. Isak came very late in the window. I think that was a serious issue for them. And they didn't address, and the big thing was right back. I think we never ever fixed that right side. Mo Salah fell off a cliff. And our right back situation was a nightmare. If you look at the title win, that right side contributed so many goals and assists. And last year, if you look at the drop off, it'd be worse than the 24 points you're talking about in terms of assists and goals. So that was a big reason for us last year.
Adrian Durham is listening as always. He said the truth is I didn't want to give Darragh my number. Which
very good. Very good. Very good. Not my favourite Ginge. Hello.
He does have a question for you, though.
Sure.
You said Peterborough are about to sign some good players.
Yep.
Do you think you can challenge for the top 6 this season?
Yeah, that's a really controversial comment. When I come out and say I expect us to be up there, I'm always slaughtered for that. But, in all my time as owner, I think 80% of the time in League One, we've always been top 6, top 7. So it's always my expectation with the money we're going to spend and the players we're going to bring in, if we get them, I would expect us to be top 6. Absolutely. And I know people are worried about them coming late, but our league season doesn't start for another 10 days. And these players coming in are fit. They haven't had no off-season. So it's not like last year where a few didn't have a pre-season. So with the manager I have and the quality he has, I would expect us to be definitely in the top half charging that way. Yeah, as opposed to the last 2 years, which has been crap.
Is it all about who's going to fill the positions in behind Leicester at the top of the table?
Well, you would say that, I guess. And then Sheffield Wednesday fans would like to have a word with you. As would some other big clubs in League One. League One's going to be fascinating this year. There's probably 12 clubs that expect to be top 6 and getting promotions. So I have no idea. I don't know. You would say Leicester's the biggest club. Outside the Premier League, it's one of the biggest clubs. So Russell Martin's a good manager. Yeah, I would expect them to be up there. Are they going to run away with the title like Lincoln did? I don't know. Watch this space.
Liverpool fans, remember, we want to take your calls. What more do your club need to do to get yourself into a position to challenge again for the Premier League title? 03717 22 3344. You can text us as well. 81089 is the number. You are listening to Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony in for Jim and Simon right here on talkSPORT.
I mean, having won the league last season, I mean, you mentioned this to me in the break. Do you think it's more emphasis on the Champions League this time?
Possibly, without wanting to obviously downplay anything else around it. Possibly there will, within the camp, that little bit of extra determination to try and get over the line in the Champions League. They'll be right in there again. Champions League is such fine margins, those matches, when you get to the quarters and the semis of those games, you can be in pole position with 10 minutes to go and go out. It's very, very difficult to absolutely guarantee anything at that level and that stage of that competition. They're the team to beat in the Premier League. I think the squad, I just looked at the squad again, Jeff. They've got so many good players. I mentioned to you about William Saliba obviously being out for a bit, not sure, a back injury, and backs can be a bit weird. You can feel like it's all clearing up, then all of a sudden something doesn't feel right again. They can frustrate you. But they've got Nketiah, they've got Calafiori, they've got others that can all play alongside Gabriel and cope admirably in that position. Still got, as far as I'm aware, unless I've missed something, but they've still got players to cover pretty much every position, every eventuality. So they're in great shape, great health. And if they get another big one through the door, another real top draw player, and I'm not sure who that is and in what position that would necessarily be, but I think if they sent a message in that respect, oh wow, they're going to take some stopping.
Well, obviously it looks like Bruno Guimaraes is going to be through the door.
He's the one. Do you like him?
I love him. You're listening to Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony here on talkSPORT all the way through until 1 o'clock this morning. We want Liverpool fans to get in touch about their lack of transfer business so far. Is it a concern? Would you still think Andoni Iraola can pull some irons out of the fire? Still plenty of time left in the window. 03717 223344. Text us 81089. I'm going to talk about Charlton now. The interesting story overnight in The Guardian that the Championship side once again are up for sale. Charlton's US owners, according to this report, SE7, have put the club up for sale just 3 years after taking over at the Valley. The ownership group is understood to have engaged Oakwell Sports Advisory to find what would be the club's fifth owner in just 6 years. In a sales deck sent to potential advisors and seen by The Guardian, Oakwell describes Charlton as, quotes, the last remaining football club upside opportunity in London. It was Oakwell who did the deal that led to Bournemouth owner Bill Foley recently buying the Premiership Rugby club Exeter Chiefs this summer. So they have got
a bit of history as well. Are you aware of this situation at Charlton at all?
I'm very close to Jim Rodwell as chief executive. He was our chief executive, and one of their minority shareholders used to work for me at Peterborough. Listen, well done to them. The last 3 years have been very successful for Charlton. Took them in a bad position, got them promoted, kept them in the Championship pretty comfortably. And if that's, I have no information whether that's true or not. I presume the Guardian, if they followed up in their sources, it's correct. They're probably looking for someone with serious money to go in there. It's a big club. But the current ownership and the people running it have done a good job. I can't be critical. I don't think people can be critical of what they've done.
They've got them to a point where they're probably now seen as a sustainable Championship club.
Yeah.
I think they've only been putting in about £25 million a year.
Only.
I say only, but in the Championship, that is by no means the biggest of budgets, and maybe they feel the time is right for someone else to come in and kick on and try and challenge at the top end of the table.
You know, they pay their bills. They've got the club into the Champ. It's a wonderful football club. It's a great opportunity for someone to go in there. You know, football clubs have been very popular the last couple of years, and particularly stateside. I don't think they'd have one iota of an issue finding an investor for that. I mean, this is another, like, not sleeping giant, but it's a big club, Charlton. You know, I grew up with Charlton in the Premier League comfortably every year, and facilities-wise, academy, all those things. That's a very attractive
Great catchment area as well.
Great catchment area. And they're right, it's one of the last clubs in London, and you're probably paying well under 100 million for it. That's a bargain. You know, what would Charlton Athletic be worth in 15, 20 years' time? So, yeah, I would say that's exciting for the Charlton fans, if it's true. And again, the people who bought it and took it to where it is deserve to make a few quid because they've done a good job.
Will it affect Nathan Jones and the players ahead of the EFL Cup starting this weekend?
The only thing that affects, managers and players is if they can't sign anyone, if their wages aren't paid, they shouldn't care. And if it's somebody coming in with, Brewster's billions, I suppose they'd all get excited by it. So this is a good thing. I know sometimes the media like to put shade on some things, but I actually see that as a positive for Charlton fans.
How do you make money out of a club in the Championship? Can you make money out of a club?
I would say the late Milan Mandaric made money out of 3 different football clubs, 2 of them when he was in the Championship. Do you know what I mean? Where he took them 2 big clubs that were in trouble and, spin them around and put them in a good position and probably made quite a few quid. Fair play to him. So you can make, like, Charlton's a classic example. And Brentford's another example. The owner of Brentford's done has been amazing. So, if he sold tomorrow, he would make money out of owning a football club. So it's not an impossible task. The key is trying to stay in the Championship long enough where you can start thriving in the Championship. And that's always the test. Like Coventry went up during COVID, didn't have the first year they were down there fighting, a bit like Luton did before they went to the Prem, and then Coventry just went bang to another level. So it can be done.
Is it a concern, though, the number of clubs in the Championship who are recording big losses every year? When you look at the wages they have to pay compared to gate receipts, obviously television money is nowhere near as big as it is in the Premier League.
It's definitely uncomfortable to see. It's uncomfortable when stuff like that comes up. Say Kieran Maguire posts stuff on Twitter and you read it and you see the losses. So anytime you see any football club losing anything over 10 million, never mind 30 million a year, it's uncomfortable reading because you think, how's that a sustainable business? But this is the football world. It's like no other business you've seen, and it's been like this since the start of time. And I guess there's always somebody, a sugar daddy around the corner, ready to jump in and buy a club that gets in trouble. And we've seen it recently with some big clubs that got in trouble. Derby a few years ago, Sheffield Wednesday recently, and those clubs will fly again. So I never worry about clubs that size going out of business. This is just the beast, the beauty of the beast, the game that we're within. And sometimes it can make uncomfortable reading when you see the wages paid out, the losses that are posted. You worry about not the players, you worry about the employees at those clubs because they're usually the first people to lose their jobs, not the actual players.
You've been part of the ownership at Peterborough for a long time now, 2 decades?
20 years this year.
I take it you've had opportunity along the way to sell your shares?
Yeah, I sold half of them a few years ago, and that, in hindsight, was a mistake. I've got some minority partners now. They're good guys. And I've always dreamt that if I could get Peterborough and keep them in the Championship 2 consecutive seasons, I'd probably then find somebody with deeper pockets to maybe take the club stadium-wise, development-wise to the next level. So when you can't put yourself in that position, you go down a different route. You look at your academy, you do all... And I know some of my fans take the mick about me bragging about Cat 2 Academy and, brilliant commercialisation of the club and all the things we do off the field. But that's credit to my staff. They're very elite off the field. And we're trying to do that on the field. But if somebody walked in tomorrow, presented a plan where they could take Peterborough to an incredibly different level I ever have and surpass the 4 promotions and 3 cup wins at Wembley in 20 years I've had, I'd be like, I'll hand the keys over. And yes, of course, I'll get my money back and probably make a few quid. But I think after 20 years of putting money into a club, I deserve to, wouldn't I?
Do you look with envy at all at clubs like Bournemouth and Brentford, for example? Clubs that, over your tenure, you would have regularly competed with in League One.
Yep.
similar size clubs, I would argue, and certainly in Bournemouth's case at one stage. Obviously, they've become this force of nature now in the Premier League.
I would never be jealous. Maybe a tad bit of envy, because that's just human nature, and I'm a human being. And you look at what they've done. I'm happy for a lot of the owners. I know a lot of the owners have done really well. They have much deeper pockets than me. You know, Tony Bloom and Matthew Benham have got much deeper pockets than me. I've done okay in life, but not to that level. Not yet, anyway.
You've still got to spend the money well, haven't you? You can have deep pockets, and football is littered with owners with good intentions who've wasted their money.
Cookie, 100%. You know, you have to be good. Your recruitment has to be spot on. Your overall plan for the club has to be spot on. So if you're looking for a template for well-run football clubs and how they did it, you're saying Brentford, Brighton, who do we just, Bournemouth. You're looking at all those clubs. Coventry could be the next one. You know, Luton almost did it a few years ago, showing the Blackpool miracle from years gone by, and then they, you know, obviously got a sobering experience of the back-to-back promotions. But those things, when I see them, there's a tad bit of envy, and I wish I could do better as an owner. Of course, I wake up every day wanting to do better, and I put my blood, guts, tears, and money into it to make it better. So that's always my promise to my fans. So going into my 20th year, I'm still optimistic.
Yeah, optimistic about the season ahead. Of course, the EFL season effectively starts this weekend with the League Cup. Portsmouth, West Ham, amongst other games, live on the talkSPORT network. Pompey have sold 10,000 tickets for that trip to London Stadium. Brilliant effort from those supporters down on the South Coast. Coming up in the next part of the programme, we're going to debate Mauricio Pochettino signing a new contract with the US men's national team. Does that suggest his time as a top-level coach are over? You're listening to Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony, in for Jim White and Simon Jordan with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade goes. Staying with Liverpool, there are some reports that they have now made a formal offer worth £100 million for Bradley Barcola. I reported a couple of days ago that Barcola wanted to make the move to Anfield, but you've not been too inspired by this possibility.
No, I'm with Jamie Carragher in the camp that I saw him the other day talking about it. We have like 3-4 left wingers already, players who can play there. We need to fill the void by Salah. Frimpong was meant to help with that, but we know he's got medical injury issues last year and not quite what we like to see out wide right when he did play. We need a right winger. It's concerning. And we're going out and we're getting another pacey player who plays on the left majority of the time. So unless Rio's going to get put on the right, you know, square pegs, round holes, all that kind of thing. I don't know. I don't love it because of the money. If he was 60, 70 million, and I get it, he's not. You think, okay, it's a no-brainer. Then you maybe sell Gakpo and you clear up some space on the left and you still go get a right winger. But Liverpool right now are playing with one centre-back and the other centre-back on one leg. So, you know, they've got issues. McAllister's going to come back. He was a shadow of himself last year. They need some help in central midfield. Potentially need a right-back because really we haven't got a right-back. Frimpong's obviously going to play in
Joe
there,
Gomez is now going to miss the start of the season.
Yeah, that's Joe Gomez. God bless him. You know, could have been a world-class defender, but obviously injuries have stopped that. So Liverpool have got a lot of holes to fill. So, and you got to start a right wing to fill Mo Salah's, departure. So it does concern me that we're going down this rabbit hole where we might end up paying, I don't know, like the Weirts money. You overpay, and then does the player adapt to the Premier League, and is it another bad signing? And it's frustrating for me.
talkSPORT News.
Good morning. With your headlines, I'm Sinead Garvan. A review into the early prison release scheme has now taken 1,000 sex offenders off the list. However, those eligible include criminals convicted of manslaughter and domestic abuse. Justice Secretary Alex Norris says if they exclude any more from the scheme, they'll run out of prison places by the autumn. That could affect future victims.
That then means that an individual who, say, is subject to a domestic abuse protection order, a restraining order or controls on their domestic abuse would be perhaps getting arrested and going to a police station and then being bailed home again.
Well, Thames Valley Police have criticised the decision after the news that two of the killers of PC Andrew Harper could be released early. He died when he was dragged along behind a car in 2019. The force say the decision is demoralising for their officers. So many people are being diagnosed with autism, there's a risk it could become meaningless. That's the opinion of a leading expert on the condition. Professor Dame Uta Frith says the spectrum needs to be split into groups to recognise those with subtle symptoms and those who need lifelong care. And BP have come under fire after reporting their strongest quarterly profits in 4 years. The sharp jump comes as the company benefited from rising prices during the Iran war. Campaigners say BP is profiteering from a climate crisis.
Talk Sport Sports Headlines with Bostik. For professional grade sealants with easy application and a perfect finish, pros trust Bostik.
Ben Stokes says there's more to say about his retirement, but now is not the time, and the battle for control of West Ham is intensifying. Will's got more at 11.
Just gone 10:30 on this Tuesday morning. We are building up for the start of the new EFL season this weekend. The big Premier League kickoff not too far away either. But what about internationally? Big news coming out overnight. The Mauricio Pochettino has signed a contract extension with the US men's national team. The new deal takes him through until the 2030 World Cup. Pochettino took the job back in September of 2024. The primarily focus, of course, was on preparing the team for the 2026 World Cup. They lost in the round of 16 to Belgium, you may recall, after that Flo Balogun red card was controversially overturned by Gianni Infantino. We've got a quote here from the US Soccer Chief Executive and Secretary General JT Batson. He says, "We know we have a lot of work to do to achieve our clear ambitions, including competing to win men's World Cups and having soccer become the most played sport in every community." What does this tell us, Darragh, about Mauricio Pochettino and his aspirations to one day become a top-level club manager? Has he taken the money?
Yeah, I think he's taken an easy life. It's not just the money, because he's been paid a lot of money at all the other clubs he's been at. So he's obviously enjoying the international life. It's a bit like Tuchel. Tuchel's young. You know, he's probably, some would argue, too young to be an international manager. Could be running some of the biggest clubs in the world again. So maybe it's just when you're in the Premier League or you're in France or Spain, it's so full on, the stresses of daily management life. Maybe being an international manager is actually lovely. Can you imagine? You know, you're pretty much going and seeing games for like a month at a time. You're having a couple of training camps. You then obviously have, you know, friendlies, qualifiers. And then really every 2 years, it's when, you know, the real action takes place. So for some people, that pace, particularly Pochettino, he might enjoy it. And he might be enjoying spending time in America. It's a wonderful country.
Do you think he's still a commodity when it comes to big Premier League clubs? No. Didn't win anything at Tottenham or Chelsea. Only one Ligue 1 title and the French Cup with PSG. Hasn't been a club manager, actually, since he was sacked by Chelsea after just one season back in 2024.
You'd have done that with that PSG team. No, I don't think he's a hot commodity. I don't think he's anybody. He'd be on anybody's list. Maybe as a caretaker manager, potentially, do you know what I mean, down the line. But look, he did really well at Spurs, you know, without actually winning anything. They played good football. They're young players. Obviously, Southampton is where he kind of like, you know, got the cradle marks off his backside to become a good Premier League manager. But no, there's nothing that suggests to me that he's elite. He'd be in a different tier. You would say Eddie Howe is now in that tier above him, because he's actually won a trophy in England. So if you were looking to go hire managers, Pochettino wouldn't be in your top 5.
Well, let's hear from the man himself then, speaking after that defeat to Belgium at the World Cup, on how successful the tournament was for the hosts.
I think in 1 year we think that we were in a mess. Thinking today in the way that we perform in that World Cup, I think we improve a lot. But the problem, you improve, but sometimes you need to go little by little, like, you know, it's not linear that you are going to grow so quick. For me, I am so proud because in 1 year, I think with all the circumstances, I think this team show that we can play football, we can play soccer, we can compete, that we need to keep improving. A lot of young players with a lot of potential and future. And I think a generation of young kids that are coming behind. I think only it's about, to keep believing in that process.
So a successful World Cup then, according to Mauricio Pochettino. You spend a lot of your time in the US. I think it's fair to say there was quite a bit of negativity before the tournament.
Yeah.
The US fans weren't particularly enamoured with a lot of the friendly performances and results. Obviously started like a train with
that opening game
against Paraguay,
boom,
which changed the mood, I think, around the manager.
Yeah.
How was it after they were thrashed by Belgium? Because let's be honest, they were taught a lesson.
There was massive optimism going into the Belgium game, that they were playing an ageing Belgium team and they were expected to win. It was the first time there were those kind of expectations on a US national team at a World Cup. Because people got carried away.
Yeah.
But it was a good carry away because you had a euphoria going across America that, they love their national team, they got behind it. And we want soccer, as they like to call it, to do well in the country I live in, because it's good for the industry worldwide. I think that you've a competitive MLS. They're now changing their transfer window, the way they play at the same time as UK clubs. I really think it's coming. And I think within the next 10 years, they could be a top 3 force, within world soccer.
So do you think most US fans will be happy that Pochettino has signed the new deal?
They don't have an issue with him. I think they saw him as, funny enough, as an elite hire for them. What the available managers were out there.
Well, they had to get outside investment in order to make the deal happen.
100% to fund the 15 million salary a year. That's how it works.
Has he justified that salary?
I guess to convince a guy like him who's managed so many prestigious clubs to go there, you're going to have to give him a wheelbarrow of cash, aren't you? It's going to have to be big. So I guess he threw a number out, and the number was, no, I don't really want to do it, but I'll do it for 15 mil. It's probably the easiest negotiation in the world. So they obviously enjoy working with him. And look, we've been critical of him just there about not being an elite manager. He's done okay and done well for them. The acid test will be the next 4 years at CONCACAF and all the other tournaments before the World Cup. Can the US suddenly be a top 10 nation in the world of football? They've got enough young players coming through. The MLS is getting stronger. I dare say by 2030, the expectations will be on semi-finals of the World Cup.
Because they like to win. The US fans.
We do. I say we, as a US resident.
Well, you look at the way they dominate at the Olympics every time that comes around.
Absolutely, yeah.
Would it be beneficial to football, do you think, globally? If the USA could go deep into a World Cup draw?
100% great for football, great for the finances of football. Absolutely, no doubt about it. A strong USA national team industry in the MLS is good for football worldwide. 1 million. I would love it. And I think, the amount of kids now taking it up, the amount of athletes who are going from, instead of playing baseball, basketball, NFL, and actually playing football, or soccer as they like to call it, you got to look at the statistics. More and more families worry about their kids getting hurt in the NFL. And when you're like 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", they're now going into football. So you're going to see that change over the next 10 years take shape. Apple have put a lot of money into the MLS. Prepare for the explosion.
Does that work, the Apple deal?
It did because of the Messi thing, and he gets a cut of all the subscribers that obviously subscribe through the Apple deal. I think Apple pay about $3 billion over 10 years. I think the next TV deal will be bigger. So
what happens when Messi retires?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, they've done it to give it a launch platform. Messi alone end up with an MLS team like Beckham did. He's got a deal to get his own MLS team. So you'll still have the eyes of the world on the greatest player of the world now owning an MLS team. So that's only good for business. So I think they're making all the right moves. If they can crack the pyramid and make the pyramid with the USL below it, because I nearly bought a USL club a few years ago. The only thing stopped me doing it was there was just no pathway to the MLS.
Right.
You've got closed shop, no relegation. You've got these billion-dollar valuations, which are a pipe dream, because all these owners don't want a relegation. They don't want the fear of going down. But what they're missing is the value behind the appreciation in club values is having a pyramid like the EFL and the Premier League.
And obviously you've got big players going over there now. You've got Casemiro, who's just joined into Miami. There's talk that maybe Kevin De Bruyne could be on his way.
At the moment, there's a lot of has-beens. There's a lot of people that have, their careers are pretty much finished at the top level. So they're taking their paychecks. It's a la Saudi a little bit. But you're going to see more and more younger players going out there, and there's been a few as well.
What about the salary cap? The fact that there is a salary cap in the MLS, does that hold the league back?
No, because they've got levers in place to be able to sign the iconic players like Messi and De Bruyne and Casemiro and players like that. So what they will be very clever at is getting creative to make sure that they don't stop themselves being competitive to the world. But they will run a salary cap because I've always been behind it. That it works in the NFL, it works in other US sports. It's a great way of doing things, and it makes it very competitive.
Would it work in English football? Would you be an advocate of that?
I'd be an advocate of a type of salary cap. I don't want to completely stop people being able to spend money as owners, and I don't want to stop players having the ability to earn good money. But at the same time, we have to be more sustainable. So I think some form of better financial fair play is needed, yeah.
So what would that look like in your eyes?
I think it would look like, look, you can't say that, Leicester have to be able to spend the same as Peterborough in League One. That's ridiculous. So it would look like basically on, the income you bring in within reason, with some ownership obviously involved, but limited, not ridiculous. A few years ago, we had 2 clubs come into League One and push our wages up exponentially. And both of those clubs, fair play to them, Birmingham and Wrexham, they were going to a different level, but they left behind a bit of a car crash. Not a car crash, but a lot of agents and expectations that centre halves that were usually on $3,000 a week were expecting to get $8,000 a week when they were 31 years old. There was a lot of those things going on. And again, that's not a criticism of Wrexham and Birmingham. They did what they had to do to go to the next level. And we're not looking to stop that from ever happening, but we're looking for some common sense approach as well. So we're working on all those things. I can't go into details on it.
Do you think the change in the financial rules from PSR to squad cost ratio is going to help with that?
I think a little bit, but we're trying to go even one step further. Our salary cap went from, the spending went from 60 to 50 this year in League One. That includes the manager's salary for the first time. So that's one step. There's a few more steps to go. We just don't want football clubs getting in trouble. We want our clubs to be worth more. We want them more valuable. And if you keep losing 5 to 20 million a year, the values of football clubs won't rise. They'll go the other way. So we just want to fix what we think is wrong with the game. It's not the perfect game yet.
Last one on this. How feasible is it that the MLS at some stage can keep their top homegrown players, the top US players, in their own league? Because obviously Pulisic, Balogun, to name just 2, are playing abroad. We've just seen actually young Lucas Harrington, the Australian, go from Colorado Rapids to Hull for a club record deal.
Yeah, Atlanta have done a few big deals. It's going to become more and more difficult because when you're a successful football league or a club, or a Premier League, Championship, League One, and you're shopping in a certain pond, if that pond becomes saturated, you're going to look at other ponds. So you look at Australia, you look at Asia, you look at Africa. Now you're looking at America and you're saying, hang on a second, their academies and the American under-21s and under-18 levels, the penny's starting to drop. The coaching's better. There's more and more UK coaches going over there. So now we can go shopping there, and it might not be as expensive as maybe shopping at home. So the MLS will have a job on their hands holding on to their best players, particularly with the salaries. Like I'm sure Hull are paying the Australian boy 5 times what he was on in America.
Yeah.
So that's where it becomes more. But if you get better TV deals and more eyes on the product in America, you can pay a little bit more salaries, and then you might not lose your better players unless they're the bigger clubs.
Should that be something Pochettino should be encouraging his squad to do, stay in the MLS and play their football?
Yeah, I think Pochettino would be on the line where he'd like quite a few of them to go to Europe. He's got a few in Germany. There's a few in the Premier League. I think what will make the US national team stronger for the short term is having more of their players playing outside of America. As the MLS becomes stronger and becomes, say, a top 5 league around the world, then obviously any American manager will want the players domestically.
OK, we're going to talk cricket in the next part of the programme because Ben Stokes has broken his silence on his departure as the England Test captain. Stay tuned for that. You are listening to Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony, the Peterborough owner, in for Jim White and Simon Jordan, right here on talkSPORT.
My issue is, and you say he's in a minority of one at the moment, I'm not sure he is because, we haven't seen the African Federation, for example, come out against him as yet. And you know what? I've got this feeling he won't be forced to resign because he's shown his vanity. He's shown this astonishing lack of self-awareness. It's absolutely beyond belief that I think he will be so difficult to prize out of his position. David Bernstein's going to be on later on, and he will tell us how difficult it was to get rid of Sepp Blatter. And I think we're in a similar situation.
That's a good point. Yeah, look, I totally understand that. But I know that he lost a couple of seniors, people in senior positions. I think over the last few days at FIFA, people have resigned. And I just always feel when that sort of stuff starts happening, when others that a few weeks ago were reasonably close to him, all of a sudden have now just gone in the middle of the night in a puff of smoke, they're out the door. and I'm sure others would be tempted to follow. I just feel that I don't think it's going to happen quickly, Jeff. Whatever's going to happen, I'm sure it's going to be pretty protracted and drag out over the months ahead. But I do think eventually this will end with someone stepping forward, a credible contender that they feel could take FIFA forward in a different direction. And I'm pretty sure eventually something will happen and he'll probably stand down.
You are listening to Alex Crook alongside the Peterborough owner and chairman Darragh MacAnthony. The EFL season starts this weekend with the first round of the League Cup. In fact, there was a pre-qualifier, wasn't there, last night between York and Crawley. Crawley coming out on top.
Yeah, good game. Yeah, enjoyed that. And listen, anyone out there, obviously, Crookie here says nobody from the EFL ever rings in.
I never said that.
We love you to ring in and we love your comments. And I'm always trying to push the EFL guys instead of just prem. So don't let me down. Let's get the calls and the messages in now.
03717 22 3344 if you're an EFL fan and you want to speak to an EFL owner who's just come off the back of a disastrous season, but he thinks he's going to have a much better one this year. Or you can text 810 18.
Isn't he the biggest P in the world, isn't he? I don't want to get a drop here or whatever, but yeah, I mean, my God.
Do get in touch. Let's talk cricket now, though, shall we? Ben Stokes has been speaking for the first time since his departure as the England Test captain. Delighted to say John Etheridge, long-time cricket correspondent at The Sun, joins us now. John, thanks for joining the programme. What do you make of what Ben Stokes has had to say?
Well, there's plenty of it. I've been listening to the podcast this morning. It lasts more than 2 hours. He's had a long chat with his old teammates, Joss Buttler and Stuart Broad. And it's been interesting stuff, actually. He's spoken about Joe Root becoming captain again, speaking about his own future in the game. He'd love one day to coach England. And he's spoken at great length about the Ashes last winter and his decision to retire, not just as England captain, but from international cricket entirely. So plenty of interesting stuff packed into the podcast there.
Well, let's hear a little segment of it, shall we? This is Ben Stokes talking about his love, talking on For the Love of Cricket podcast, speaking about his departure as England Test captain.
The stuff related to cricket in terms of that's the overall the factor to it. I'm not going to lie and say that there might have been some other things that contributed to the decision as well. But again, I'm not here today or anything like that really to go into all that detail. Yeah, I think there's a time and a place for that, and now isn't that time. Because I don't want to come across bitter towards anyone yet, because I'm chilled right now.
Is he going to wait for the book deal and he gets the £1 million in 5 years' time and then tell us? John, a couple of questions about Ben. We all love him as a player. Did you rate him as a Test captain? And second question would be, Is he going to come back last minute for the Ashes to play next year?
Well, certainly on that second point, I mean, he was asked that question in the podcast, and the word was, definitely not. So I think he's made the decision to retire, and at the moment, in his head, he's absolutely going to stick to that. So no amount of persuasion or trying to coax him back for the summer against Australia in 2027 is going to work. So that's the way he sees things at the moment. As regard his captain, I think he was a brilliant captain. The first couple of years, particularly, he was instinctive. He changed things. He brought the kind of the aggressive style into the England team, which became known as Bazball, and it was hugely successful. They won, I think, 10 of his first 11 Test matches in charge. I think as time went on, some faults slipped in. England were not playing smart cricket at times. They were just sacrificing aggression for everything else, really, and that had an impact on the team. But overall, taking his 4 years in charge, he was undoubtedly a very good England captain with a lot of brilliant ideas, field placings and that sort of stuff. And he brought about this incredibly aggressive and dynamic style to the team, which most people love to watch.
He did allude to it there, though, that there were incidents off the field that have probably played a big part in this decision. Most recently, the situation with him and Gus Atkinson after they breached the team's midnight curfew. They were embroiled in a melee with a Saracens academy player back in September of 2017. Stokes was arrested after being involved in a street brawl outside of a nightclub. He was eventually charged with a fray after claiming it was self-defence. Then you had Harry Brook during the Ashes, fined and censored for his discipline when he went drinking late at night and clashed with a nightclub bouncer. The list goes on, really. Do England have a disciplinary problem, a behavioural problem, and how do they solve it?
Well, I think, cricket generally has what would be known as a drinking culture, really. And I think that has filtered its way through from club cricket all the way through to the England team. And there's no doubt that in Australia last winter, they probably drank a bit too much and were seen to do so in public. So that 4-day break they had in Noosa halfway through the Ashes series, it was very visible, very public. There's one sort of strip, there's one main bar there in Noosa where the players tended to congregate, and all the Aussie media turned up and sort of poked fun at them and so on. The Harry Brook thing, it was a bad thing, really. There's no question about it. He was the England captain and he was thumped by a bouncer the night before one day international. So there's no real excuse for that. He was fined 50 grand, given a sort of final warning, and that probably has held back his captaincy aspirations. He's currently captain of the one-day team, the white ball teams, and he might well have been captain of the Test team when Stokes retired. But they've gone back to Joe Root. I think they feel he's more of a sort of captain sensible, a safe pair of hands. So, but cricket, you play club cricket, you score a 50 or take 5 wickets, you're expected to buy a jug of beer and pour it out into everyone's glass. And that is kind of how people grew up playing cricket when they first got involved in the game. And it's filtered through all the way up to the England team. I personally think that elite international sport now, drinking is something that you have to do very cleverly, very sparingly, really, because if you're drinking a lot, really, then it's going to impact your performances. But the fact is, like most sports, if you're winning, you can get away with lots of things. The Aussies last winter, Travis Head, he was one of the star turns of the series for Australia with the bat. He made no secret of the fact that he enjoyed a few beers. If you're winning, you can get away with a lot more than if you're losing.
That's very true. They always say winning takes care of everything. So, final question for me. What are your thoughts on Fleming and the Test team going forward? What's expected over the next 24 months from them?
Well, what's expected? They've got to start winning, haven't they? They've lost 7 of their last 9 Test matches. The big dream, obviously, is to recapture the Ashes next summer at home against Australia. But I think Stephen Fleming's a good appointment. It's a bit of a Kiwi takeover, isn't it? Because Brendan McCullum is now in charge just of the white ball teams. His great mate, one time, in fact, still currently business partner, great friends. Stephen Fleming's now in charge of the Test team. We've got Jeetan Patel as the spin bowling coach, Tim Southey as the fast bowling coach. Whether they keep their jobs under the new regime is yet to be decided. But yeah, Fleming's smart, he's strategic, he's a good people's man, great sort of man manager. So I think he's a good appointment. He's relaxed, but not quite as relaxed as Brendan McCullum. So I think he'll lay down the law from time to time. And his big thing is to get the England team playing more cleverly, more smartly, without losing that aggressive Bazball side to the game. So if he can do that, because there's plenty of talent in the team, if he can do that, get them playing more smartly, then I think results will improve. But the big goal is winning back the Ashes next summer.
This has to work, doesn't it, this appointment, for Rob Key in particular, because speaking to ardent England fans, a lot of them are surprised that he's still in situ.
Yeah, I think Rob Key would admit himself he's probably lucky to keep his job, really. I mean, the captain's gone, Ben Stokes, the coach has gone from the Test team, Brendan McCullum, he's been replaced. He couldn't get his first choice, which was Andy Flower. You would think if you're going to sack McCullum, you make sure your first choice is already lined up. But that wasn't the case. Flower turned down England and stayed on the lucrative T20 franchise circuit. So he's gone to Stephen Fleming, who's kind of second choice, happened to be available only because he's finished his links with the IPL only 2 or 3 weeks ago. So that was quite handy to have Fleming available. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if England don't turn it around now, then I think Rob Key's for the high jump.
John, thanks for joining us. Really insightful, as always. That's the very latest on Ben Stokes speaking out for the first time since departing as England captain, and what the future holds for the England team as well. Next up, we're going to be turning our attentions to West Ham as Daniel Kretinsky prepares to quite aggressively block Amanda Staveley's potential investment in the Championship club. You are listening to Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony in for White and Jordan with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com. Let's bring in Terry Gibson, Spanish football expert. Terry, always good to speak to you. Lots of news stories over in Spain at the moment. Let's start with that Marcus Rashford farewell post to Barcelona. Looks like his hopes of return to the Camp Nou are now very much over.
Yes, it does, and I think it was a blow to him when Anthony Gordon. It must have been kind of awkward when the England team met up for the World Cup when Anthony Gordon had already completed his move to Barcelona. Marcus Rashford's future was hanging in the air. And then they signed Karim Adeyemi. So it's not going to happen now for Marcus Rashford. I have to be honest, I'm really surprised. I thought it was a good value in terms of the transfer fee. And I thought his form last season was as good as you would expect. And he couldn't have done any more. He scored some important goals. He actually effectively got the goal that won them the league title. He was popular with his teammates and popular with the fans. So I'm surprised. Even when Anthony Gordon signed, I still thought there was a possibility that Rashford would still go, but the signing of Adeyemi has put a stop to that.
Is it just wages? Because obviously Anthony Gordon would command a much lower weekly salary than Rashford.
But he was £80 million. Rashford was 26. Yeah. So 26 million, slightly difference in their ages as well. People are forgetting they've got Rafinha that plays there as well. So the problem positions that everyone thought they had, and they still have, are centre forward, Lewandowski leaving the club, and they should have bought a better centre back than what they currently have.
Sport.
11 o'clock, good morning. Speaking for the first time since his Test retirement, Ben Stokes says cricketing reasons were the main factor in his decision, but that there are other elements that he's not willing to divulge just yet.
I'm not here today or anything like that really to go into all that detail yet. I think there's a time and a place for that, and now isn't that time, because I don't want to come across bitter towards anyone yet, because I'm chilled right now.
Speaking on For the Love of Cricket podcast, he says Harry Brooks should have been appointed captain for the match he was banned for.
When I missed that Test match, I was like, why is Brooks like his vice captain? I understood the reasoning why they were saying it, but I was still like, well, what message is that sending to him? He's vice captain, and then the captain is not playing, but he's not captain.
And he says he wishes Joe Root all the best for his second stint in charge, but admitted he is concerned for Root after the toll his last tenure took on him. Stokes also said he'd love to be England coach one day. Elsewhere, Everton's Tony Bellew told talkSPORT what he thinks Jack Grealish should do next season.
We'd absolutely love him back, and if I'm being totally honest, I'm sure he'd love to come back. It'll depend on what this Maresca really wants, doesn't it? Will he be having him? And that's what it'll be. I think he'll have conversations with this Maresca or whatever have you. And if they don't fit, then I think hopefully he can come back.
Meanwhile, Fergie's former assistant René Moulenstein thinks Marcus Rashford has a future at Old Trafford.
Did he lose the love for the club, or did he lose the love of the manager that he was working for at that particular time? I think that just needs a very good conversation between Michael and Marcus, because I'm sure that Michael rates Marcus as a player. Then there is an opportunity he could still stay. I can't see why not.
And some breaking news. FIFA's own Secretary-General, Matthias Grafström, has called the abandoned World Cup sale plan a sad and reproachable series of events, which is difficult to comprehend and accept. That's in an internal staff message. The email did not directly reference Infantino. There's more at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
Serious sexual offenders will not be included in the early prison release scheme, and BP criticised for announcing huge profits thanks to the war in Iran. Sinead has more at 11:30.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. With over 400 EV-ready centres across the UK, we're top of the league for electric car owners. Visit quickfit.com and book today.
Some persistent patches of heavy rain continuing in the north, a risk of hail and thunder across Northern Ireland, scattered showers elsewhere, mainly in the west, dry in the south with warm temperatures.
Tell you what, Darrah's turned his studio into an ice block. It's freezing in here now.
It should be, instead of being out there and that.
Oh, dear. Yeah. Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony with you for the next couple of hours here on talkSPORT. I want to talk West Ham now. Just when you think things are settling down in the boardroom, all of a sudden there seems to be a lot of hostility around Amanda Staveley and her bid to buy 25% of the club. We talked about this yesterday. Amanda Staveley, of course, brokered the Saudi takeover at Newcastle. She's agreed to purchase the full 25.1% stake from the Gold family. The deal is worth £150 million. However, shareholders at West Ham have the right of first refusal. So all has been agreed. It's yet to be ratified. Daniel Kretinsky, the Czech businessman, who also owns a minority stake in the club, he's got matching rights. I'm also told that he's trying to buy out more shares in order to stop this takeover, and that even if Amanda Staveley's bid for 25.1% does go through, he would try and stop her taking a place on the board. So this all sounds very hostile all of a sudden, Darragh.
I don't know why she wants to get involved in all of that. If she wants to buy in and get a club, go down the road to Charlton. I know it's not West Ham and West Ham Stadium and all of that, but why would you want a quarter of a club and then have all that drama about not having a say, not getting on the board potentially, being at each other's throats from day one? West Ham fans don't need that. I guess Sullivan sits in the driver's seat in all of this. He owns the most shares out of everybody, I believe. So it's really about, I don't know about the matching rights, because the problem she's going to have is since he's got matching rights to take those shares from the Gold family, and he's got matching rights to stop Sullivan selling to A, B or C, well then this guy's a very wealthy guy. I don't know why he hasn't done it. I don't know why there hasn't been a deal done.
And you were asking off it there, why would Amanda only want 25.1%?
Yeah.
I would presume that's a starting point to one day taking overall control of the club. So she wants overall control eventually.
Sure.
Obviously, you've got Kretinsky, who seems to want to be the majority owner. And while David Sullivan has stepped down from the day-to-day running of the club, obviously he is still the bigger shareholder. So therefore, you've got three people all vying for complete control of the football club.
Yeah, and that's where it can get messy when you've got so many different parties on, A, B, C and D of all the shares of a club. Really, it's somebody who wants to be over that kind of 60-70% threshold, so they've got the real power, so that you can get on with a vision, implanting the vision and what you want in a football club. Now, Amanda did great at Newcastle. She's obviously got friends with deep pockets, so I'm just surprised that it's 25%. So there must be a road there to more. She knows this. She's obviously been going down the legal route. I'm sure she's had advice, so she must feel very confident about her position.
This story first appeared in the Times. I've done a bit of my own digging on it as well, but what the Times are saying is that Daniel Kretinsky has reduced his holding from 27% to less than 25%, which enables him to buy the Golds family's full stake without becoming a 50% owner. He doesn't want to surpass 50%, as that may trigger a clause under a shareholders' agreement between them from 2021, which forces him then to buy David Sullivan's 38.8% share.
Okay, so that makes sense.
At an inflated price. And despite the fact he's not there day to day, I'm being told by people close to the situation, David Sullivan is demanding top dollar for his shares.
Well, of course he is. So regardless of what's gone on away from football, he's been there now a long time. He's put a lot of money in. So, and he'll know he's sat in a very, very good position. You know, he probably at one stage wanted his sons to take over West Ham, and that's probably not going to happen. So I guess this is going to run and run. I don't think it will affect West Ham doing business this summer. I don't think it'll affect them in the Championship before fans start panicking, before the media start creating that kind of narrative. I think they'll be absolutely fine. But again, I go back to the Amanda situation, is why she wants to get involved in all of this. You know, because there are a lot of other football clubs available out there.
Do you think she might walk away now, bearing in mind that Kretinsky seems determined to block it?
Look, you're better off knowing now than going 3 months down the line with due diligence, spending a lot of money, and then finding out the guy across the other end of the table basically wants to have full control and doesn't really want you involved. So if that's the case, I presume the next thing would be, if I were her and her investors, is to meet with him, Krasinski, and actually have a conversation and go, look, is this just going to be all out blood war or, you know, warfare, or is there a way for us to live in the same universe and help each other? And you want to have that chat now, because I guarantee they've already spent a fortune on legal fees, you know, getting that offer accepted and going down that route. And like I said, there are other football clubs out there that she could invest in.
Because there was talk of maybe investing in Tottenham at one stage, but obviously that was much more expensive to do.
With all due respect to her, I think, you know, when you talk about what they paid for Newcastle, which she's paying for West Ham, Tottenham's, what, 3-4 billion now? It's gone to a different level, and you're talking about dealing with owners who are already billionaires, the Lewis family. So, but there are lots of other clubs and clubs in the Premier League, you know, so that would probably sell a large chunk and probably quite happily have her on the board. And her husband and her experience at Newcastle was a positive one, so they're bringing that to the table. So I've got no doubt about it. But she obviously wants West Ham. I don't know if it's next door to where she lives or it's, you know, location easy. And maybe she won't give up the fight, so who knows?
Dead thing, I think, was the quote, wasn't it? From Simon.
Yeah, like, I'm not having a pop at Simon, so...
Well, it sounded like it a little bit.
No, that was you, all fair. So the reality is, she knows what she's doing. You know, she's been around football for a long time. I think she was involved in the Man City money back in the day as well, bringing people in. And so we'll see, but there's no doubt she'll end up owning a slice of some football club. Will it be West Ham?
You say this shouldn't affect West Ham, but their fans, I think, will be a little bit concerned because they rejoiced when Karen Brady left the club. They rejoiced when David Sullivan took a back seat after relegation last season. It was Daniel Kretinsky who decided to keep Nuno Espirito Santo. My understanding was that David Sullivan was willing to change his manager the day after they were relegated. It's Kretinsky who's persuaded Jared Bowen to sign a new deal. We got some details about that, actually, when we talk transfers later on. But now it's just a bit clouded again. And one of the big issues with West Ham over the last few years, in my opinion, and a lot of their fans' opinions, there's been too many people who want to make the decision. Sullivan, Brady, Kretinsky, obviously from afar. You've still got Mark Noble there leading the recruitment.
Haven't they got a director of football now? Didn't get a new guy in?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So they've got a pretty decent squad for Championship level. What do they need? 2, 3, 4 pieces? In a league they should win. Again, media narrative from you guys, you know, that this is going to cause all sorts of issues for West Ham fans.
No, I just think at the time when it looked like they'd finally got a settled boardroom, all of a sudden they're in disarray.
Let me put it this way
at that level.
People don't give a crap about the boardroom. As long as the bills are paid, the football is good, and the experience is fun, and your team's winning more than they're losing. That's all fans care about. So all the drama off the pitch, they just want to go on a Saturday or a Tuesday and enjoy watching their team. And if West Ham fans come August time start battering teams in the Championship, all the boardroom crap will be long forgotten, no matter how many articles or things you guys want to talk about in the media. Fact.
Do you want to talk about Leicester?
Sure.
Because we're
give it a go.
We're discussing potential takeovers.
Let's give it a go. What's a club? What's a club?
The former Sunderland
Which
director,
I had 140 million.
Charlie Meffin has suggested overnight that the valuation of Leicester is £140 million. He thinks that might put off potential buyers. You spoke glowingly last week about Leicester, their infrastructure, the training ground, the academy, the fact they should be promoted from League One this season. You thought would be a good investment.
A guy like him,
£140 million.
A guy like him is only saying that because he'd like to be able to
can't afford it.
No, because he'd like to pull a Sunderland and pull a whatever, where he goes in and gets a club for well below its rate. You know what I mean? And smells opportunity. So I ignore him. Let me tell you about Leicester. Leicester's training ground's worth 100 million. Never mind what their stadium's worth. Never mind what their academy's worth. Never mind what their team is worth. Forget about the fact they're in League One, because that's just a temporary holiday. They will be back in the Championship in precisely 8 months' time. So if you're telling me Leicester's worth 140 million, every person out there who has 140 million like spare change should be running in that door and buying it, because that's actually the steal deal of the century. So he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, he's saying here that most clubs towards the top of the Championship would normally be 100 million. So, for example, he says you could probably get Middlesbrough for around 100 million. So how can a League One club go
I'd like
for
him to meet Steve Gibson and say that to Steve Gibson. Again, I don't know if he's, trying to make himself relevant or whatever else, but he's talking nonsense. I'm telling you, Leicester is worth more than 140 million. I've been at their training ground. I've been around their facilities. Yeah, those assets don't lose value because you're suddenly in League One for a short period of time. They have players already in their squad. They could go out and sell probably 50, 60, 70 million pounds worth of player talent. Would you agree?
Yeah, probably.
So how the hell do you value a club at 140? Like, makes no sense whatsoever. The owner, unless he's really skint, unless he needs a tenner right now, there is no way he'd be taking 140 million. Now, if it's 140 million plus debt, another 120 million in debt, say 300 million, that's a different situation.
Yeah.
But there's no way that club's worth 140 million, a lot more.
And you see with Leicester, because obviously there was a lot of discontent from their supporters at the end of last season. There has been for a couple of seasons, actually. Yep. They're in League One now. Yep. They've got rid of some of the deadwood from the squad. They've got a new manager in Russell Martin, who you and I both rate, but he comes with a point to prove after what happened at Rangers and maybe Southampton in the Premier League as well. But do you see this as a case of a club having to take a couple of steps backwards to come forward? Do you see them back in the Premier League in the next 5 years, for example?
Yes.
In the next 3?
Next 3, probably not. Next 5, yes. I think if Russell Martin gets time and gets to put his project in place and he stays there, because I'd say the biggest criticism of Russell was he's probably hasn't been at some clubs long enough. He's bounced around. And I think he probably learned after the Rangers experience that he needs to put his feet under a table with a project, 5-6 year project, and build a football club. And he's got a wonderful opportunity at Leicester. They've got some incredible young players. They will do some business in the market, I'd imagine, by the end of the window. He's got a great opportunity to go win the league, put themselves back in contention in the Champ. They could be in the Premier League within 3 years. There's a lot of big clubs coming up and down in the Champ and the Prem. But there's no doubt about it that if the owner could hang on and let the football do the talking for the next couple of years, it will buy him time. Because if they go back to the Premier League, trust me, they're worth a hell of a lot more than 240, 300 million. So that would be your end goal if you're the owner. Now, if the owner's just mentally fed up and he wants to walk, and I get that too, I've been in football 20 years, because of the criticism, the disappointment, the relegations.
There's a plane flying over the stadium asking for him to quit.
Right, I get all of that. I get it. You know what I mean? There'll be probably planes flying over talkSPORT soon from my fans if I don't sign a player. So I can get all of that. I get how it gets to you. I can't speak for him or where his mind is. Maybe he just wants to be done with it. He's had good experiences with his dad there. Maybe he holds that close, and maybe he's not as willing to let it go as quickly. So Leicester have got no issues.
I would love that, by the way. If we looked out the window on the 17th floor of the news building, there was a plane with MacAnthony out in big writing on a banner.
Here's the funny thing. It was Louise out there was saying that there's so many ring-ins coming in, so many positive comments.
Funnily enough, they've not flashed up on my screen.
Well, yeah, big crookie.
Oh 0371722 3344. If you do have a question. Premier League clubs are going to start the new season under new management, and we've got some fascinating stats about the longest serving managers in the Premier League as well. Stay with us. You're listening to Alex Crook and him, Darragh MacAnthony, in for White and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go.
No Vin, no fee. That's on the back page of The Sun, with also Arsenal target Vinny Jr. back in training with Madrid. You feel as though, if the Madrid deal happens, he will end up staying. But around Bruno, they've had a deal rejected for £75 million. So do you think Gabby actually, depending on how these plan out, Arsenal might have a quiet window?
Yeah, but they don't need a busy window. Just won the Premier League, and they're going to strengthen. They've lost Trossard. They brought in Zolis, who's a very good winger. If they bring in Bruno Guimaraes, I think that's enough to go again and win the Premier League anyway, even without him. But it's going to make them stronger. And I think he's a fantastic player. I don't think he should be the same fee as Tonali because of the age difference. 3 years older than Tonali. So you look at him, no sell-on value for Arsenal if they sign him. So I think 75, 80 is about right.
30 million less, okay.
Just because of the age I'm looking at.
Okay. Yeah. But they're not going to have... But how important is it that Arsenal do get in a midfield, especially at the start of the season, because they won't have Declan Rice?
Yeah, and they've sold Norgard to Everton, so you're looking at that midfield and you're saying it's a bit light now. I think it's a fantastic player. We're just talking, me and Jeff, off air. That probably says Zubamendi, maybe you're a squad player next season.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think the thing is with Bruno Guimaraes that he's reportedly said that he wants to join Arsenal. So the deal will happen. So from a Newcastle perspective, get it done.
Yeah.
Don't let this become Alexander Isak Mark II.
Anthony, just picking the studio apart. We've got an hour and 20 minutes into the programme, and we've not mentioned FIFA or Gianni Infantino, but we're going to have to now because a statement has just dropped from one Arsene Wenger. He says this, Wenger, the former Arsenal manager: the recent events at FIFA deserve some clarity from my side. At FIFA, I'm the Chief of Global Football Development. Together with my team, I oversee the data analysis of the game, the FIFA Online Training Centre, the development of youth education through 60 academies across 60 countries where they're most needed, and youth competitions around the world. In addition, I'm technical advisor to IFAC. Thanks for clearing that up, Arsene. I was not involved in this strategic plan and first became aware of the project through media reports. This, of course, relates to Infantino trying to sell off stakes in FIFA competitions to private investment firms. The decision to withdraw the project was absolutely necessary and beyond question, because I firmly believe in an independent FIFA that serves our game with commitment, transparency and integrity. Now, this is clearly Arsene Wenger distancing himself from Gianni Infantino. My question would be, why is it taking him so long?
Well, he's waited 5 days to do it because everyone else has. So he's lost. He'd have more credibility if he'd come out before the end of pay month. The end of July, where he's probably getting a check cashed or whatever else for his jobs. If he'd come out then and said, look, line in the sand, I don't agree with this. So, again, what he's saying now is irrelevant, isn't it? It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
So, again, you lose credibility. I get it. He's taking the dough. He's enjoying his role. Appreciate it. Put him in a difficult position. And, move on.
FIFA have also hit back overnight at a report suggesting Infantino was seeking the help of the Trump administration. This is something we spoke about with Kevin Nolan on this programme yesterday to back his plan to sell the World Cup. They posted on X, formerly Twitter, the FIFA president has not made any call to the US president or any members of his administration in recent days. It's pure fiction. Now, with the greatest will in the world, this was a story that was first reported in the Times, picked up by our own Ben Jacobs. I don't believe the Times have made that up. I don't believe FIFA's statement.
Well, I don't believe that the Trump administration would have taken Infantino's call at the moment. There's enough stuff going on.
But that doesn't mean that he wasn't planning on making that call, does it?
Assuming he was going to make it, we're predicting he was going to make the call. According to who?
According to the Times.
Well, who did he tell that he was going to? So I'm telling you, I'm going to make a phone call later.
It's the Times who have led the charge on this story. Martin Ziegler's reporting has been on point.
I get it. Ziegler has been bang on. All right. And, he probably would have tried to call Trump in the administration. I would imagine because Kushner pulled out, who's obviously related to one of Trump's, married to the brother of the guy who's married to Trump's daughter. I would say the Trump administration says, look, the World Cup's over. We don't need you for a few years. Move on. And they would have probably told him, don't bother calling.
Yeah.
So I would imagine.
But is this not a case of they doth protest too much, as the old saying goes?
I don't know. I'm bored talking about it. I think it's like it's moved on. It's done. He's going to be out of a job soon. He'll probably resign.
Do you think he will? Because he just strikes me as the type of character who's going to try and hang on for grim life.
I think he'll want to check on the way out the door. As that's the type he describes. I look at and go, yeah, he's definitely going to want paid to step down. I can't predict tomorrow, but again, for me, right now, today, it's completely irrelevant. The reporting on it was blockbuster. It did.
Well, it's relevant because Arsene Wenger's now put his head above the parapet.
Yeah, of course.
Again, it's drawn attention.
Of course, we had a production meeting this morning, and it was a breath of relief that we weren't talking about.
Now we are.
FIFA, and here we are again, because it's kind of like cold toast, and I don't really care about Infantino anymore, and he's irritated enough people in football, so I think doors are closing in his face. It won't be long before he moves on.
Well, let's hear from Laura McAllister, shall we? UEFA Vice President. She joined us live on talkSPORT yesterday, and she said there is a crisis of leadership at FIFA.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope others follow our lead, whether that's England or other European nations, because the more unity we have around this, the greater power to our elbow. And if all 55 nations in Europe, some didn't send a letter of support, of course, but if everybody withdraws that, had they submitted it, then I think it gives us a lot more leverage in what happens next. I think this is a crisis of leadership, not of one individual, and we need to be part of the debate now about how we create a better culture around the governance of football and make it more in tune with what the fans want, particularly, but also what the clubs and players want too.
That was the UEFA Vice President, Laura McAllister. I mean, UEFA, we praised them, Darragh, on this programme. They've shown their teeth throughout this saga. How does it end? Because I know you're keen to draw a line underneath it.
How does it end?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it ends with them wanting Infantino out and then putting somebody in that they feel is going to be very pro-UEFA, as well as being FIFA, will be pro-UEFA. I guess you said there was the Paris Saint-Germain guy they wanted to put in. Is that correct?
That's one.
So you've got all the different associations coming out now, one by one, going like, we don't endorse his re-election. He's had better days, hasn't he? So
he's had better weeks.
Yeah, he's had better weeks.
Because actually, my attention's just been drawn to an email.
Here we go.
Sent by the FIFA Secretary General Matthias Grafström, in which he calls the abandoned World Cup sell plan a, quote, sad and reproachable series of events, difficult to comprehend and accept. This is an internal staff message that's been sent by the FIFA Secretary General. So seemingly he's got no supporters, Infantino. He's got no one to lean on.
No one to trust either. I tell you, there's a hell of a lot of leaks, isn't there? It's incredible, really, an organisation that size and whatever, and everyone's talking. So, and I guess, look, we know how this plays out. He'll go, somebody will come in, there'll be a load of books written about this in the next year, yada, yada, yada. It's not going to affect football today. It's not going to affect football tomorrow. So hopefully the next person they put in charge, continues to grow the game. Because that's really what it's all about, is growing the game.
And actually doesn't let the power go to their head, because I think if you go back to when Infantino first came in, he did seem to have good intentions, but he's just lost his way.
Yeah, you're probably right there. Power probably has gone to his head. I'd say you take any normal person in a role like that who gets paid a lot of money, and suddenly they're sat with all the heads of states and leaders and royal family members around the world, money has been thrown at them left, right and centre. I'm not saying he was corrupted, because that's a hell of an accusation. I'll leave that to the media to do that. But
You're in the media now, Dan. That's what you're doing.
No.
10 till 1.
Listen, I'm just a blockbuster guest occasionally. So just to help with your ratings. I missed those shots. There's only one left, yeah. So just say this. He'll move on. We'll get someone else in there. And you made the point there. First good point you've made for a while. Hopefully the power won't go to their head. And they serve the people and they serve all the different federations worldwide, because that's what football needs.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll move on. We'll move on. But that statement from Arsene Wenger clearly distancing himself from Gianni Infantino. Do want to talk the number of managerial changes in the Premier League in the next part of the programme. We're going to get the latest betting odds as well, all thanks to our friends at BetMGM. You are listening to Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony. We're in for Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com.
A very quick call on Trent Alexander-Arnold. Oliver is a Liverpool fan. Morning, Oliver.
Morning, how you doing, lad? You all right?
Yeah.
All right,
really
Oliver.
Good, yeah. Would you like to see Trent back?
Good. I'd absolutely love to see Trent back. I think Mo Salah missed him very much last season. Obviously, Salah had a pretty poor season last season, but when he come back with Real Madrid, it was very frosty, and I think the damage is being done, to be honest with you, but I would love to see him back in a Liverpool shirt, yeah.
Look, there's no doubt. Nobody can doubt his quality. On the ball, he's as good as anything, anywhere.
He was winning games from right back. Obviously the Barcelona game in 2019, that cross, and then I think he was very, very important when we won the league with Slot as well. So much quality, from right back.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, brilliant. I think a lot of Liverpool fans would share that view. They'd all love to see Trent back. Oliver, thanks very much indeed.
Maybe Jeff as well. Thanks, Oliver. You wonder, though, whether the player, having not really done it at Real Madrid, would want to sort of maybe at least stick around for another 6 months to see exactly where he figures and where he fares. He'll know pretty soon. As players, you get the vibe whether or not you're on you're part of the in club or whether you're on the outside of it.
talkSPORT News.
Good morning with your headlines. I'm Sinead Garvan. The Justice Secretary said 1,000 sex offenders have been removed from the early release scheme. The plan to tackle overcrowding was put on pause but will now continue with 5,000 inmates to be freed. Some of those eligible have been convicted of manslaughter. Alex Norris says they will be under tight controls.
Whether that's drugs, alcohol controls, whether that's what public events they can go to, this will not be for any person released under this progression model. This will not be a scot-free model. This will be very, very significant controls.
Well, among those up for early release are the killers of PC Andrew Harper. He died when he was dragged along behind a car in 2019. Thames Valley Police say the decision is demoralising for officers who put themselves in harm's way to protect the public. Elsewhere today, more than 150 migrants have been rescued after the boat they were in caught fire trying to cross the Channel. The RNLI helped the British and French Coast Guard and returned people to France. No one was injured. And oil giant BP's seen its its takings more than double again. Company profits hit £4.2 billion, up from £1.7 billion a year earlier. The business has benefited from the massive rise in oil prices caused by the war in Iran.
Talk Sport, sports headlines with Bostic. For workable, easy to apply mortar that tools easily, pros trust Bostic.
Arsene Wenger has distanced himself from the FIFA controversies, and Ben Stokes says he won't go into the full reasons he's retired because he doesn't want to be bitter. Amelia's got more at noon.
You're listening to Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony. We are here until 1 o'clock this afternoon when Paul and Andy will be back in the hot seat. Time now to catch up on the latest odds, all thanks to BetMGM.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. We're ready for the action. Are you? Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18 plus. Gambleaware.org.
And I don't know what we've done to deserve this, but we got double Dan for the second day in a row. Dan Taus has joined us. Dan, we've seen more of you in the last few days than the missus.
Don't give her any animation, Crookie. Yeah, you have. No, 2 days this week and again on Friday, but I believe you're on holiday Friday, aren't you?
Well earned holiday, mate. It's been a long, tough summer so far.
It must have been 7 weeks in the US, yeah.
All work and no play. Celtic 1-0 winners over Dundee last night. Not the most convincing of performances, but I'd imagine it's changed the odds, has it, in the Scottish title race already?
Yeah, they got slightly shorter. As you said, they beat Dundee to get their title defence up and running. Benjamin Negrin with a goal. But Martin O'Neill, as you alluded to, wasn't that excited by the performance and said they didn't play particularly well. And they did have a couple of chances. I watched the highlights this morning. Casper Hugh had a couple of chances and McGregor hit the post. So on another day, it could have been more. But they're back out on Sunday away to Kilmarnock. It'd be interesting to see if there's a little bit of a reaction to that performance. They're now 13-5 from 4-6 yesterday to win the league. Rangers 7-4 and Hearts much bigger at 14-1.
Let's talk about the Championship, shall we? Because the EFL season starts this weekend with the first round of the EFL Cup. I'd imagine West Ham, having tied down Jarrod Bowen to a new contract, are pretty short favourites, aren't they, to go straight back up?
They are, and just before I touch on West Ham, obviously we see the change this year with the expanded playoffs. So the top two still go straight up, but it's now third and fourth into the playoff semis with fifth through to eighth playing the quarterfinals. More jeopardy, I suppose. There's more games for us as a neutral to watch, which is great. But there's obviously more chance for a team to sneak through the back door. The market's got the three relegated Premier League sides from last year as the favourites to bounce straight back. West Ham, as you mentioned, they've kept hold of Nuno. They've kept hold of Jarrod Bowen, which is huge for them, even having lost Fernandes and Somerville was left during the summer. They're 15-8 favourites to win it and odds on at 4-5 to finish in the top two. Wolves and Burnley have seen a few changes with managers and players over the summer. They're 11-2 and 9-1 apiece. Looking elsewhere, Southampton are technically still unbeaten in 21 league games, despite Spygate. They opted to keep hold of their manager, Tonda Eckhart, and they start the season -4 points. They're 14-1. Whilst getting into the playoffs, Middlesbrough at 2-5 and Millwall 7-4, who both fell short in the semis last year. They'll be fancy going again, especially with the increase in playoff places. But just two questions to you guys. One, West Ham are rightly favourites, and I don't disagree with it, but we all know how competitive the Championship is. And at 15-8 to win it and 4-5 to automatically go up to be finishing in the top two, I think is incredibly short. In addition, what do you think of the new format of the playoffs going down to eighth place?
Well, that's probably a good one for you, Darragh, because actually I spoke to Rick Parry. I think it was the League Cup final earlier this season. He was suggesting that they will eventually filter down into Leagues 1 and 2.
We want it. I love it. Absolutely love it. I think, more entertainment. There's a lot more interest at the end of the season. You go into the final 2 weeks of fixtures and you're going to have teams from, I don't know, 6th down to maybe 12th place in the league. So it keeps it relevant, because a lot of games in the last couple of weeks are really irrelevant. The ones where there's no relegation danger, there's no going up, on the table. So we wanted in League One and League Two. I was personally a bit irritated that the champ got it and the rest of us didn't. So as a director of the EFL now, it's something I have said, I think we need it in the other two leagues.
And you said you played West Brom in a friendly the weekend, and you felt they were capable of maybe mounting a challenge.
Yeah, I think they're building something well there. I think their manager's doing really well. They're young, they're fresh, they're quick. They've, I think, moved a few veterans on in the summer. The recruitment's been okay. I think they've got more business to do, but they weren't mugs, that's for sure. So, and I like the style of football they're playing.
What about the European draws that took place yesterday, Dan? Brighton are either going to play Cluj, I think they're Romanian, or Tromsø in Norway.
Yeah. Obviously, you mentioned the Champions League playoff draw. Celtic got LASK, who topped the Austrian league last season. Celtic home the first leg, which will be the first ever meeting between the two clubs. No outright markets yet on the Europa League or Conference League, but both Rangers and Hearts in two-legged ties. Rangers are priced at 5-4, and you're going to have to forgive me for this one, Crookie. They play Polish side Yalo Nay by Wistok, and the draw's at 23-10. The Polish side out to 2-1. However, if they lose, they drop into the Conference League qualifying instead. Hearts have a much tougher assignment. They got beaten by Sturm Graz in the Champions League qualifying. I think it was 6-0 in aggregate. They're the big outsiders at 17-1 to face Benfica, who are short as 1-12. If they put off a shock, then they're going to be heading to Denmark in the next round. But like Rangers, it's the Conference League qualifying for them too. If they do fall against the Portuguese side, Brighton, CFR Cluj from Romania. I think we were in the Champions League about 10 years ago, Crookie. They're from Romania, or Tromsø from Norway. They hold the record for the world's northernmost professional club. I checked the temperature. It's about 13 degrees in August in the Arctic Circle, so that shouldn't be an issue. But they're the favourites to get past Cluj at 1-2, and if they do, they'll host Fabian Hertz's side on the first leg on the 20th of August. And most importantly for both of those clubs, their league season's already started, so you'd expect they'll go into those games a little bit fitter than the Albion.
Yeah, I think Cluj are ticking along okay. Tromsø not so much. Are you going to be making the trip? You're going to dig out the passport, or are you waiting for a big draw?
I'm on holiday for the away leg, unfortunately.
There he is, honestly. More holidays than Thomas Cook, that fella. Dan, thanks very much for joining us.
Cheers, gents.
That was a look at the latest odds. All thanks to BetMGM. Visit betmgm.co.uk. Download the app, 18+, begambleaware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18+, gambleaware.org.
Now, it's going to be a record-breaking Premier League season even before the first ball is kicked. That's because we've got 9 clubs set to start the new campaign with a new permanent manager. That's the highest number of new managers in the Premier League's opening weekend since the competition was formed back in 1992. The previous record was some 10 years ago. In that season, Pep Guardiola arrived at Manchester City and Antonio Conte joined Chelsea. Is this just modern football, Darragh, that there's such a big turnover now in the dugout?
No, I think it's been going on for years. I said to you, the average in the EFL, I think it's 11 months, is the lifespan of a manager. It's crazy. You said earlier that the Tottenham manager is was it the 5th longest manager in the Premier League? Was it
9th longest serving. But he took over what? February?
Yesterday? Yeah, look, that's the gig. That's what you sign up for. It's what you get paid the big bucks. It's really should be called danger money. Because you're getting paid.
Not bad danger money. If you're
It's great. It's great. No. Any manager who gets a gig in the Premier League, the danger money's fantastic. But what I'm saying is, it should come with a hazard, a warning sign, because very rarely are you lasting longer than a year, 2 years. That's just the way it is nowadays. So I don't think that's going to change. If you were a betting man, who are your 2 managers you think will be first to go?
From what I'm hearing at Fulham. Ooh. I'm not sure Alvaro Arbeloa is going to last the test of time.
They were giving Real Madrid plenty of money, aren't they?
Yeah. 2 players in yesterday for £42 million. 2 good young up-and-coming Spanish players, by all accounts.
How are they going to adapt quickly to the Premier League?
It's very tough, and it seems to be his philosophy is we're going to recruit from Spain.
Does Silva make a mistake leaving the Premier League to go, Portugal?
Benfica, it's a huge club.
I know it is, but the Premier League, with all due respect,
football.
Yeah.
And he's taking Fulham as far as he can.
Who's the next manager? So you're saying Fulham manager first. Who's the next one? Come on.
That's a toughie, I mean, anyone hired by Marinakis is always on.
I
do like Oliver Glasner.
Glasner's top.
I wonder about Reggie Labrie if it doesn't start well for Sunderland, because there were a few whispers even at the end of last season if they didn't qualify for Europe, they might consider a change.
Well, that'd be ridiculous. What about the Hull manager? He's changed managers a few times, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he's in conversation about a pay rise though. I think he wants to stick with this guy.
They lost 4 or 5 games.
Yeah,
does that change in football?
Maybe.
How many times have we seen it? So, be interesting. But no, look,
Arbeloa would be my bet.
I don't know what he did at Real Madrid to deserve a top club like Fulham in the Premier League.
And actually, Terry Gibson, Spanish football expert, was pretty scathing when we had him on the programme.
But I guess, look, the Fulham fans don't want to hear that. You're slating their club. So let's hope he turns out to be a good manager.
2 questions for you.
Yes.
2 ideas. One from producer Dan behind the glass. He thinks there should be a managerial transfer window.
Ridiculous.
My suggestion is, why don't all clubs just put their manager on a 1-year rolling contract, assess their performance at the end of the season, and then decide whether to carry on or not?
Well, A, you'd need all 20 clubs in the league to agree, so that's never going to happen. B, you've got a Labour government, which is, I'm not going to say socialist or conservative or whatever else, but the reality is they're not going to allow a manager window where you're going to stop an employee for 9 months of the year getting another job. Legally, it's never going to happen. So the idea of a transfer window for managers...
So that's that shot down. But what about this rolling contract? Because actually, the Liverpool manager, I think he signed a 2-year deal, but he only really, Iraola, likes to operate on a 1-year deal, and then they sit at the end of the season and decide whether they're going to carry on or not.
Yeah, but there's no security for someone on a rolling deal. You get paid a year's money. If you sign a 5-year contract or a 10-year contract if you're at Chelsea, if you sign a long-term contract, you're going to probably get a lot more than a year payoff.
What a lot of clubs do now, though, they give you a 5-year contract, certainly in the Premier League, and you've got a 1-year break clause.
Thanks for telling me how managers' contracts work. I appreciate the education.
Well, no, I was telling you about the Premier League. You've not
It's really, really funny. Outside of Premier League, there's this wonderful thing called the EFL. It's really fascinating. You'd be amazed what's on
I was
TV.
actually just telling the listeners, because they might not understand that there's, the idea that you're going to get a full payoff if you've got a 5-year contract is fanciful now.
So let me explain how contracts work. I'm going to educate you because you need it.
Well, Darren Ferguson rings you up, you give him the job.
No, to be fair, and I'll tell you how my contract worked, Darren Ferguson, there was no payoff.
Right.
So we had an agreement between us that if a club came in for him, it was nothing. And if he wanted to leave, it was nothing. And if I fired him, he'd get nothing. So we always had that as a gentleman's agreement.
Was that, I'm not being facetious here, but was that every time you employed him, you had that arrangement?
Well, the second, third and fourth time.
Right.
So the first time when he came in, his brother negotiated the deal, so it was different. He was young, up-and-coming manager. As he got older, he basically, and to be fair to him, when he quit when we were in the champ, didn't want a penny. Now, that's not normal for all managers. No. So you got different ways. I've had managers on contracts where if they're in the top 6 of League One, it will cost a lot more to fire them.
Yeah, it makes sense.
If they're outside the top 6, the fee to get rid of them is a lot less. I've had managers where they get 6 months payoff, 12 months payoff, but you pay the 12 months over 24 months to loan the blow, so you're hiring another manager. But in there you have a clause that in the meantime, if they get more work, you're going to pay less. Say they get 100 grand or 200 grand somewhere else and I'm paying 150.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you pay the difference. So there are different clauses. Chelsea obviously do it like you just said there. I think they do a year, is it?
Yeah.
Is that what they do?
Yeah.
They do that for Rosenior?
So.
Did he really get a year?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah, so it differs. I don't know. Areola, I guarantee, is longer than a year. He was a high commodity. I bet you anything he's got more than a year payoff. Glasner, definitely, because if you're going into Forest, you need a bit of security on that.
But do you think that made Iraola an attractive hire for Liverpool, the fact he didn't demand a long-term contract? The fact he was happy to be judged on results?
Yeah, look, there's a risk there, because if he comes in and wins the league and does really well, then you're in trouble. He's going to want to be the highest paid manager in the league. I think, what's Arteta on? 15, 16 a year? So let's say...
Glasner's not a million miles behind.
No, he's not, but Glasner's a top-class manager. Say Areola wins the league next year. It's his final year. So he's now the league. Now you could be facing losing the manager of the league champions. That's a problem. And if his agent says, well, actually, we want 20 million a year, it's not going to be long before managers in this league, in the Premier League, are getting 20 million a year.
And how does that sit with you as an EFL owner?
Well, when we played a Saudi team pre-season, I had an agent ring me to say, oh, you should meet my manager. He's the manager of the Saudi team you're playing. I'm like, oh, great, lovely guy. He goes, yeah, he gets 15 million a year and he gets a 4 million signing on fee. And I'm just like...
And you played them off the park, didn't you?
Yep, it's obscene. But fair play, but it's obscene. I think, even when I see Vinicius and the figures quoted about coming to the Premier League, I think we're getting carried away with ourselves. And I'm a capitalist and I love all of that, but I just see some of the money and I think now we're eating ourselves. It's way too OTT. But fair play to those who can get it, but you wouldn't turn it down, would you?
And thank you.
You'd go to Saudi tomorrow. Of course you would.
Not sure about that.
Crookie. You go anywhere for a tenner.
I don't know if Saudi would suit my lifestyle.
Yeah, it's not about your lifestyle. Your wife would pack you off for 2 years and never see you again for that payday. Honestly, come on.
Don't give her any ideas. And thanks for educating me on contracts, by the way.
No problem.
I always appreciate that.
There was more, but I'm going to save it for a different day. There's other little metrics and levers you have in contracts. Some juicy ones.
You're keeping them hanging on.
I am until I get
making sure you come back.
Decent co-presenter. I'll share it then.
03717 22 33 Would you be in favour of your manager just signing a 1-year rolling contract? Should there be a transfer window for Premier League bosses? Text us 81089. I'm going to
focus on horse racing next because there's a big row brewing between the Jockey Club and the Racecourse Association. You are listening to Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony in for Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
I speak to people here and there, good sources.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing I can say is that I know for a fact we're not going to rush. The window doesn't close until the beginning of September, end of August, beginning of September. We've got a lot of time to make decisions. And on top of that, we're not like other teams who desperately have to strengthen and anyone's better than their current team. If somebody comes into our team, they have to be the right personnel, the right players on the pitch, and they have to fit the vision of Arsenal Football Club. We haven't spent 7-8 years building this squad for anyone to come in and for it to be some kind of joke. So the likes of Bruno, great attitude. He can play, Mikel likes him versatile. He can play as a 6, he can play as an 8. He can play as a 10 if you really want him to as well.
His creativity is very underrated, Joel.
Exactly. And we all know what it gets like. When you're Arsenal Football Club, you're in every single competition, guys. Just to remind everybody, we only, didn't play 2 games out of the possible. All of the games that you could have played last season, we only didn't play 2 games. What games were they? Do you know?
It would be the League Cup final. Oh no, you played that.
You're wrong. That. You're wrong. Don't worry, Ollie. I'll correct.
Go on. Yeah, go on.
Semi-final of the FA Cup.
And
the final of the FA Cup.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. So that means that even if you've got 2 10s, Eze and Odegaard and how great they are, sometimes you need more players.
You are listening to talkSPORT. I'm Alex Crook in for Jim White. He's Darragh MacAnthony, filling the sizable shoes of Simon Jordan for the next hour or so. We've talked football, we talked cricket. Let's talk horse racing now, shall we? Because there's a row going on between the British Horse Racing Association and the Racecourse Association. Let's bring in Rupert Bell, talkSPORT's horse racing correspondent. First and foremost, Rupert, have you recovered after missing those last couple of days at Glorious Goodwood?
I'm back on track. Thank you for your concern.
news of my demise have been greatly exaggerated. And Crookie, thank you for standing in for me last Thursday at such short notice, particularly when you had the Eddie Howe story to deal with. So for which thank you. And then Lizzie obviously came up trumps on Friday. So well, the battle on for my successor is in full swing. But anyway, there we go.
Marks out of 10 from you, Rupert, because Lizzie gave me a 6 for my first couple of efforts, gave me a 7 for the Nassau Stakes. I was quite happy with that.
Sorry, Crookie, to upset you, but I wasn't feeling too good to even listen to your efforts on Thursday, but I do appreciate your efforts. But actually, a serious point, Goodwood, forget our health issues and everything. We were at Goodwood, and what an amazing meeting it was. I mean, okay, I was only there for the first 2 days, sadly, but it shows that on the surface, racing has everything looking wonderful. We've had amazing meetings throughout the summer, whether it be the Royal meeting with some fantastic racing, Goodwood, you know, Bow Echo, then with the Goodwood Cup and all the other stories that dominated from a racing viewpoint. But then underneath, we have a sport that basically is scrabbling to find its direction to take it forward with purpose in the future. And that is why, you know, the Jockey Club have severed links with the Racecourse Association, which is supposed to represent all the racecourses with the BHA. But they don't feel, the Jockey Club, who run 15 racecourses, including Aintree, Cheltenham, Newmarket and Epsom, for big meetings with the races that they have. And then you find that they're saying the Racecourse Association doesn't represent us positively enough. The BHA have been scrabbling around to find a successor to Lord Allen. They found one, but there's so much needed from a political level, from an administrative level, to sort the making racing fit for purpose in a modern world. And that's the big question mark that racing has to deal with going forward.
And I guess one of the big questions, the Jockey Club has indicated its plans to partner with Ascot and other like-minded venues to form a brand new group. It leaves a decision from the likes of those other independent courses, just as you mentioned there, Goodwood, York, Newbury. Could this effectively split British racing in two? And surely that doesn't really benefit anybody.
No, well, as also, don't forget the Arena Race Group, who own a lot of, are responsible for a lot of the racing. You sort of look at Jockey Club, the way it works, you've got the Jockey Club, you've got the Arena Racing, two big groups who have a different approach in many ways as to the way they want to see racing run. You then have the independents, which of course the biggest of those is Ascot, but York has a huge impact. Goodwood, they're big high profile race meetings. There are other smaller tracks in that. Newbury, they wouldn't probably say they're a smaller track, but you can see where I'm coming from. And then Plumpton has ploughed its own furrow for some time with their chairman, Peter Saville, former BHA chairman. What the problem is, they feel that the way it worked is that every racecourse had a voting right. If you look at FIFA, basically, Infantino says, I've got 211 football nations, and yet I have one nation, one vote. What the racecourse authorities have said, this shouldn't be the case, because every racecourse has a different impact. Because obviously, if you're Cheltenham, you're the biggest meeting, you will have a different view to the way the sport could be run. And I'm just plucking a racecourse out, and I don't mean it disrespectfully, to say somewhere like Newton Abbot, who will have a different set of values. I'm not saying they're wrong or right, but that is the point. Racecourse Association has almost like a FIFA-like grip on the way they did. So they produced a statement last week, which then went and said, look, we understand the needs, and said, right, our voting system will change as to the way we see the way racecourses should be governed. Questions over the fixture list. But more importantly, what has to happen also, racing depends on the betting levy. And it's a hugely significant part. There's all these gambling reviews going on and people being questioned, have they got the funds to bet and going forward, which is sort of turning people away. Have we got the powerful people in the BHA who can actually get into the corridors of power and bash heads of people to bring some common sense? Because it seems like at times within the view of the Gambling Commission, they're the Ministry of Non-Fun. They see gambling as an absolute no-no. Now, I am not saying that there isn't a problem with one or two people, but most people do it for a bit of fun. and let's be clear, but it became a runaway train. We need racing's power brokers, the BHA, and hopefully Simon Cox, the new BHA chairman, who comes from a brewery background, and you say, but what is his racing? Well, he has had horses, so he knows it, but he's got to lead the charge into the corridors of power to make sure the administrators within government can see that racing, a huge employer, has a way forward. But the RCA sort of rift with the Jockey Club is all part of is symptomatic of the unease about the direction of racing going. Have they got the political nous, the people in power across all factions? And it is a faction-filled sport, and that's the sadness, because the trainers will have a view, the owners will have a view, all will have a strong view as to the way this sport run, and it needs the BHA to grab it and say, right, this is what we're going to do, and you've got to come along with us. And will they be able to do that? That's going to be the challenge for the sport, because yes, we go to York or Goodwood, we have a lovely time, but it is literally the tip of the iceberg is beautiful, but underneath, my goodness me, it's a mess.
I was going to say, you mentioned the owners and the trainers there, and obviously people directly involved are going to have a view on this. I've got to say, Stewards Cup Day Saturday, 20,000 through the doors at Goodwood. Nobody was talking about this situation. What does it mean for the man on the street, the man and woman on the street, the fact that Jockey Club has dumped the Racecourse Association? Why should they care?
Well, I think what I think is like all sports, do we care what's going on at FIFA from a sort of personal point of view? Probably not. But actually, we might think going forward, you actually say, is the sport heading in the right direction? The Jockey Club, which used to run the sport, but then they split and gave it to the BHA to be independent, feel that the way the fixture list is managed doesn't really help the sport. Now, the sport is under huge economic pressures because it depends on owners. Let's be quite clear, without owners, we don't have a sport, because you've got to have people who are prepared to invest, whether it's in a syndicate or individuals, to continue to support. But racing is under pressure like so many businesses. I know for a fact my brother's costs have gone up hugely as a result of recent tax changes and so therefore that gets passed on to owners, but then that means that we might find there are less owners, so there'll be less horses. So that could have an impact on the quality of the sport, because if you've got less horses in training, just by dint of sort of law of averages, you won't have as many potential Bow Echoes around, and you just might have more average horses. So it's a very, we're at a crossroads as how the sport's going forward. We've seen trainers drop out. Well, I'm sure there are plenty of owners who are saying, do I want to go to the sales this year and buy a horse for 50? Have I got a spare? And I know you might say this stupid amount, but if you want a decent horse, you're probably talking between 30 and 50,000. And then by then, that's no means guaranteed. So you can see the problem that the sport faces that might have an impact. But everyone going racing this summer in the wonderful weather, and we've seen attendances increase, are probably going, well, what's the fuss? But I can assure you, behind the scenes, there are some serious issues, and it needs some BHA to grab this and just say, right, when Simon Cox gets his feet properly under the table, he's got to drive it forward and to make sure we have a sport that seems fit for purpose.
It does feel like a watershed moment. Rupert, thanks for joining us. Good to see you back on your feet as well. No doubt Rupert will keep us right across this situation throughout the summer and beyond. You're listening to Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony on talkSPORT, and we're going to be delving into Crookie's transfer notebook next. It's interesting, this situation with Vinicius Jr., because there were some reports at the weekend that he'd agreed personal terms with Arsenal. Rock Nation, who represent the Real Madrid star, have released a statement hitting out fake news. They said Rock Nation Sports International and our entire team cannot stand idle when unprofessional and uninformed media publish fake and damaging information for attention-seeking purposes. This is especially unacceptable when it personally targets our clients without any foundation. It's disruptive, harmful and libelous, they say. Media outlets and journalists need to hold themselves more accountable. Now, if Vinicius Junior was that keen on a move to Arsenal, would his agency really have gone so strong in the statement?
No, I think. Look, they've been playing the game, haven't they? Let's be honest. I think Vinicius Junior wants to stay in Real Madrid. I think that's where he sees himself. He's probably using Arsenal to some extent to try and, get probably another 100 grand more on his already probably £1 million a week contract. So for me, Crookie, I think I'm expected that he's going to be staying at Real Madrid. I'll be very surprised if we see him in the Premier League and playing for Arsenal next year.
It's a real tall order, isn't it, for any club in the Premier League to tempt a player from Real Madrid. I was speaking over the weekend. I think it was Darren Goff maybe who made the point, or maybe Tony Cascarino. Dennis Bergkamp in the mid-90s when he left Inter Milan, Serie A was the powerhouse then of European football, to join Arsenal was a real surprise. Would this be comparable?
I think it would be. Yeah, I think it's probably bigger.
Good afternoon, you're listening to talkSPORT. With your sports headlines, I'm Amelia Baltrao. Ben Stokes says he'd love to be England coach one day, but insists he will not be reversing his retirement decision.
It got to that point where I was just feel like I couldn't move without anything, really. Eyes are always on constantly. You just sort of, it was horrible. But now I just feel I can do things that sort of don't have to worry about people being there.
Speaking on the For the Love of Cricket podcast, Stokes suggested Harry Brook should have succeeded him as skipper and that he wishes Joe Root all the best. He is concerned about him after what he went through at the end of his last captaincy tenure 5 years ago. Stokes also says he has no regrets about opening the batting in his final test match.
You've got to commit to something. Now, obviously, we got bowled out in the way that we did and it ended in a way that we didn't like. We were devastated. But again, if we'd gone about it a different way and got bowled out, it probably would have been the wrong way to take it on anyway. It's just how it is.
Elsewhere, Arsene Wenger has distanced himself from Infantino's now shunned sell-off plan. Wenger says the decision to withdraw the project was beyond question and that he firmly believes in an independent FIFA that serves our game with commitment, transparency and integrity. Coventry City have permanently signed Carl Rushworth for £22.5 million. He was on loan last season from Brighton. And despite a checkered recent history with his boyhood club, Marcus Rashford can still have a strong future at Old Trafford, according to Fergie's former assistant Renan Willenstein, who says the fans will be 50-50 about him.
They maybe left a little bit some feelings they're not too happy about, but other ones will say, listen, if Marcus comes in, he performs, he scores a few important goals, then everybody jumps in the bandwagon again.
As always, there's more at talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
1,000 sex offenders have been removed from the early prison release scheme and BP under fire for record profits. Sinead, I have more in half an hour.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. The season's changing, so get your car's shim pads and studs checked for summer with a free vehicle safety check. Book in centre or at quickfit.com today.
Persistent at times, heavy rain will continue in the north with a risk of hail and thunder across Northern Ireland. Scattered showers elsewhere, mainly in western areas. Dry in the south with warm temperatures.
You're listening to talkSPORT. I'm Alex Crook, Darragh MacAnthony alongside me into the final hour of the programme. Time to talk transfers because, of course, the transfer window is in full swing. talkSPORT.com and the talkSPORT YouTube channel, the best places to stay right across all the big deals. Coventry in the last few minutes confirming the signing of Brighton goalkeeper Carl Rushworth in what we understand is a £22.5 million deal for the Premier League newcomers. I'm also of the understanding Brighton inserted a buyback in that deal. Drove a hard bargain throughout the summer at the Seagulls. I think they realised, Darragh, just how good Rushworth could go on to be. I think they see him as potentially a future England international, maybe even an England number one. And certainly Coventry do as well.
And look, they obviously haven't got space to play in themselves with the goalies they've got. So they've got the next best thing, good business, and have the buyback in place. A lot of these clubs now are doing the whole buyback thing. It's amazing. So, and Coventry have signed a player they know very well. Sure, their fans are really happy and they're doing good business.
How would that work, that buyback? Should Brighton want to trigger it at some stage? Obviously, the player's going to have to be on board as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, so from what I understand when I've seen it, and I've seen a few things come recently about buybacks and matching offers and all those kind of things that get involved now, all new to transfers, is that the player would have to agree, a bit like Trafford who went back to Man City. The player now, it's different from an obligation to buy where you already pre-organised a contract with a player. You take him on loan, you've done the contract. In the event it turns permanent, the contract's all done. With this will come down to the player wanting to go back to Brighton. Because in 4 years' time, if Brighton come in, wages will have gone up with inflation. So he's hardly going to sign a pre-contract now in the event that happens. So I just think it's a bit of protection for Brighton. Coventry have done good business. Now, imagine the buyback's like 50 million, something high. Because there's no way Coventry are going to sign him for 20 and say, oh, you can buy him back for 30 million. And there's probably matching rights offers in there. If anyone else comes in for him, they'll have first refusal. So that's the modern way of transfers now.
And I think it gets to the stage where if you're Carl Rushworth, you just want to lay down some permanent roots. You look at his career, hasn't made a first-team appearance for Brighton. He's had loan spells at Worthing in the non-league, Walsall, Lincoln, Swansea, Hull, and obviously Coventry last season. He played every league game. It was a big part of their success. And I think he's just decided, do you know what? I don't want to go out on loan again. I want to go and play for Frank Lampard on a permanent basis.
Perfect for both clubs. That's the going rate for a young, talented goalkeeper who's obviously done brilliant in the Championship. And for Brighton, they're getting that kind of money for a player who's hardly played for them. So that's how your system is meant to work, and Brighton are one of the best at doing it. Fair play to Doug, the Coventry owner, again, back in Lampard. Another good signing.
It's interesting. You look at all three newly promoted teams. They are really having a go this
Spending
summer,
Spending money. Ipswich always spend money when they go up. Obviously, Hull, your mate, is spending money. I think he's updating his list on Twitter, isn't he?
I think he's due to do that.
He's doing that today. And in Coventry must have spent north of 60 so far in the market.
And
so
Ipswich as well.
Yeah, and they're not done. They're actually more busy than a lot of Premier League clubs.
Yeah, those clubs who've literally just come into the league.
I think some of them spent more than Liverpool.
Yeah. One of the stories in my notebook today is about Sasa Lucic, the Fulham midfielder. My understanding is that they would be willing to let him go. He's only got a year left on his contract. I think they'd rather sell him than Sander Berge, who's been linked with Manchester United. And Ipswich are one of the teams showing interest. And that makes a bit of sense, doesn't it? A player who's
a bit of experience in the Premier League. Yeah, perfect for them. Maybe they're learning lessons from last time. But you'll still see them signing some younger players as well, with the idea in mind that if they do go down, they can bounce back pretty quickly. So, well-run club.
And this is a story I think that will interest you, because we've been talking about Liverpool and maybe their lack of defensive options at this moment in time. They do have a buyback themselves on Gerald Quansah, £70 million, which is double what Bayer Leverkusen signed him for. It's my understanding they're not going to trigger that buyback this summer.
70 million quid for Quansah. Do me a favour. Yeah, I mean, they should have got a better buyback in place than that. You know, ideally he can play centre back and right back, so he would suit them right now. Shame they sold him for 30, because he's the kind of player they could have done with keeping last year and maybe selling Gomez if they could. But no, you're not paying 70 million for him. Not a chance.
And is it more important to invest that money in other areas of the team, because they've got the two young centre backs who I know they've got great hopes for?
Yeah, I think they definitely need help at right back. You know, obviously you've got the injury to our main right back. Your Frimpong hasn't settled in. I still don't even know if he's a right winger or a right back. He's had injury issues last year. He goes down again, they're in deep trouble.
Yeah.
They need to sign a right back, a right winger, and centre midfielder.
Is that easier said than done, though, when you look at what they spent last summer? Are they necessarily going to have the funds to do that?
I think they've shown they'll find the funds. Are you joking me? When we talk about, I know the owners of Liverpool have been accused of being cheap before and tight with their money and bringing in what they spend and all that.
Frugal.
But if they wanted to go and spend 150 or 200 million across those 3 or 4 spots, Liverpool could do that in a heartbeat. Their revenues are through the roof. their valuation of the club has gone through the roof. People are trying to buy into the club.
But
those valuations will drop if they don't compete for trophies and do well on the
But they don't want to overpay, do they? I mean, look at Bradley Barcola, for example. You're not even in favour of this signing.
Nope. Walk away.
At the moment, PSG are holding firm, 145 million
Walk
pounds.
away.
So I don't even think Liverpool have got to the negotiating table there.
No, because there are other spots that need filling. We're okay on the left. I think everyone would agree. Yes, you'd have ideally liked to replace Diaz with a better quality player than Gapco, who Spurs now apparently want to sign. We need something on the right. We need a central midfielder and potentially a right back. So, no, I wouldn't want to be spending 120 million on Bradley. And I know some of the fans came at me for saying that, and some of them agreed with me. I just think it's a luxury that we don't need on that side.
On the subject of right backs, James Tavernier, good servant for Rangers, available on a free transfer. We know there's been interest from France. Ben Jacobs was writing about that over the weekend. Charlotte in the MLS, managed by Dean Smith, have made him an offer.
Great move from him. Listen, what a servant of Rangers he was, by the way. That's a great move for him and his family going out to the States. Where were the other areas interested in him?
Well, you've got two offers from France, as I understand.
Yeah, go to America.
Nice and Paris,
and
also Burnley.
France will take 60% off you in tax.
Burnley?
Go to the States, 30%.
Yeah.
Burnley, what? Burnley want him? Oh, fair enough. Listen, experience, maybe good for their squad, yeah. But they got Kyle Walker already in that position, haven't they?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'd go to the States. But the beauty about going to the States as well is you get maybe a longer contract because they don't mind signing a few older players. They're okay with that, with the level out there. So I think it's a good move.
I spoke to Dean Smith actually during the World Cup. He spoke glowingly about the MLS. He seemed to be really enjoying
himself, Dino.
Yeah,
great guy.
Do you think we might see more British coaches go out to America?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's a wonderful place to bring up a family. Like I said to you before, the taxation bracket's very good. I think the MLS, the US, I think you're going to see a lot more coaches manage to go to the USL, which is below the MLS.
Yeah,
there's a lot more. Those clubs cost like 50 million for the franchises. So I do think you're going to see more and more coaches go out there, because I think the Americans are serious about the business. I think they want to, make themselves a global powerhouse in football within 10 years. To do that, they're going to need a lot of good British coaches to help.
Mateo Kovacic pledging his future to Manchester City. There have been reports that Juventus and his old club Inter Milan are maybe looking at signing him this summer. 32 years of age now, but it looks like he's going to stay at Manchester City. He came on actually in the FA Cup semi-final against Southampton when they were up against it a little bit, City, and considering he's not played much football, you could see there was still very much a player in there.
Is that one, what's it got, a year left there? Is that one where you break the bank, one of those teams going up, to go give him a 3-year deal at 32?
Really?
Well, would you? Because I'm just thinking like...
You swap Man City for Hull or Ipswich there with the greatest respect in the world?
Well, fair enough. Look, you've got to... Well, listen, would you for, I don't know, an Ipswich, would you... head back to Italy afterwards? But I'm just thinking, do you break the bank to bring one of those leaders into your dressing room? Like Sunderland did with Xhaka. Do you know what I mean? Like, who thought he was going to come from Germany to Sunderland? And he's done great.
Fascinating, actually, on the subject of what type of players you need and characters you need as a newly promoted club. Hull back in talks with Leon Bailey. It looked like that deal had stalled a couple of days ago.
You like that one?
It's still a possibility. I'm not sure because I'm not sure of the player's character.
Did you give advice to the owner on that one?
And if you're joining a newly promoted team, if you were the owner, how much would you look into ability? Because he got the X factor.
Yeah.
He's played in the Champions League. He played a lot for Villa towards the end of last season when he was recalled from loan.
We know he's got ability.
But is he the type of personality you want when you're up against it, when you're losing games week in, week out?
You got to dig deep. It's certainly a bigger concern now for every football club, including mine this summer, where you're digging deeper into characters.
Yeah.
Because when you've spent a long time in the game and you see so many rotten apples throughout the game, not coming into my club specifically, but across football, you don't want poison in the dressing room. But you're absolutely right. When the weather changes, when things get dark, when you haven't won a few games, it can be a very negative place. And if you have some bad apples in there, it becomes toxic.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want is any toxicity at your football club. Now, I'm not saying Bailey's that type of character. You kind of, said that over there. He's a very talented player. I don't know about his character. But it would be a good signing if he was a good character.
Someone whose character certainly can't be questioned is Jarrod Bowen. We know he's staying at West Ham. He signed a new contract. There are all kinds of bonuses in there if they do go up at the first time of asking. We know there's a release clause as well. If they don't get promoted this season, he would be allowed to leave next summer. It's my understanding that release clause could be as low as £15 million.
Makes sense. Protects the player. Why else would he sign a new deal? He wouldn't be stuck in purgatory in the Championship forever. Yeah. The one thing about Jarrod Bowen is you will never question, will he bring it in the Champ? Will he put the same level in?
He's a cheat code in the Champ, isn't he?
He's a cheat code in the Champ. He's committed to that football club. His partner, his family, they're all based around there now, so he's not in a hurry to leave. I am amazed some of the London clubs or whatever didn't have a little tilt on him. I'm amazed.
Chelsea were watching him at one stage.
Yeah, well, I guess, look, Chelsea got so many players out wide, haven't they? Do you know what I mean? So, but there are other clubs there you would have looked at and gone, Fulham? Would you have had a sniff? They're spending, 30, 40 million on a load of Spanish kids from Real Madrid? Would Jared Bowen have looked good in the Fulham side? They lost Harry Wilson.
Absolutely.
I'm just thinking that's the kind where you go and go, look, what do you want at West Ham? We're going to give you more. You're staying in London, you're moving. And what Jared Bowen could have said, or some of those clubs said, is we'll put a release clause in your contract if you come to us, that if West Ham come back up, they can re-sign you for X amount. If it's such a West Ham thing.
On the subject of West Ham, it's being reported by the Press Association that the London Stadium landlords have advised David Sullivan to stay away while the allegations that he's subjected to are ongoing. More on that story on talksport.com. Stay tuned to the TalkSport YouTube channel as well. We'll have a brand new episode of The Window, bringing you up to date on all the big deals from the summer every single day. Up next, Angelina Kelly is going to join us to talk about Mark Skinner leaving his role as manager of Manchester United's women's team. You are listening to Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony in for White and Jordan on TalkSport with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go.
Having won the league last season, I mean, you mentioned this to me in the break. Do you think it's more emphasis on the Champions League this time?
Possibly, without wanting to obviously downplay anything else around it. Possibly there will within the camp that little bit of extra determination to try and get over the line in the Champions League. They'll be right in there again. Champions League is such fine margins. Those matches when you get to the quarters and the semis of those games, you can be in pole position with 10 minutes to go and go out. It's very, very difficult to absolutely guarantee anything at that level and that stage of that competition. They're the team to beat in the Premier League. I think the squad, I just looked at the squad again, Jeff. They've got so many good players. I mentioned to you about William Saliba obviously being out for a bit, not sure, a back injury, and backs can be a bit weird. You can feel like it's all clearing up, then all of a sudden something doesn't feel right again. They can frustrate you. But they've got Nkapie, they've got Calafiori, they've got others that can all play alongside Gabriel and cope admirably in that position. Still got, as far as I'm aware, unless I've missed something, but they've still got players to cover pretty much every position, every eventuality. So they're in great shape, great health. And if they get another big one through the door, another real top draw player, and I'm not sure who that is and in what position that would necessarily be, but I think if they sent a message in that respect, oh wow, they're going to take some stopping.
Well, obviously it looks like Bruno Guimaraes is going to be through the door.
He's the one. Do you like him?
No, I love him.
Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony here on talkSPORT. 2 have become 3 because Angelina Kelly, talkSPORT's women's football correspondent, has joined us as well to talk about the departure of Mark Skinner from Manchester United. How are we doing?
Yeah, all good. How are you?
I'm good. You're pleased the hat's not here today?
Yes, that hat needs fumigating, burning, whatever we can do. Or donating, maybe, somewhere.
There was a suggestion we might auction it off for charity. Can we get a few quid?
No one's buying that. Come on.
Darragh might.
Nothing you've worn, mate. Nobody's buying that.
You can buy all the money you've not spent on players so far this summer.
Dig.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been like that all the time. He's like a Peterborough fan.
Sorry.
Yeah.
How big a shock was this when the news broke yesterday?
You know what? It was 50-50 because I think when you look at Mark Skinner's time at Manchester United, it has been quite turbulent. On one hand, you look at it and think he has actually overachieved because the amount of money that he has to play with versus Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City is significantly less. And, he got Manchester United women their first piece of silverware ever in the FA Cup, got 4th, 3rd, 5th, 2nd, 4th, got them into the Champions League for the first time in their history. So on one side, you have to say he did overachieve. However, on the other side of the coin, people were frustrated. The fans weren't his biggest fan. People were quite critical of the choices that he was making. They got to 4 domestic cup finals in total, won one of them. The other 3 they lost on aggregate to Chelsea 6-0.
Wow.
So it's not great in that sense. And I think that his departure is kind of similar to the Eddie Howe situation. I think that you're looking at a manager who, within his world, is very well respected. Ex-professional footballers that I speak to speak very highly of Mark Skinner. Whenever I've spoken to him, he's always been very polite, very respectful, etc. And I think he's looked at this and thought, this club are not willing to invest in this women's team. I'm going into a new season. The issues last season were lack of squad depth and wanting, big stars that can show up on the big stage. He hasn't got that. A lot of players have been sold. The squad depth is less. And he's looking at it and thinking, I'm not going to be able to do anything with this team. And I think for his own reputation, partly, he's thought, I need to walk away from this. And in a sense, it is kind of similar to the Eddie Howe situation. The powers that be aren't backing you. I think the key difference is that Newcastle perhaps couldn't spend money. Manchester United women won't spend money.
Well, that's interesting that you've hit upon that because Sir Jim Ratcliffe gave an interview to Bloomberg back in June 2024 and he was talking about his investment into the women's team.
I haven't asked you what you're doing with the women at Manchester United.
Well, they've just won the FA Cup.
But do you look for, would you spin it off?
We haven't. Again,
an investor come in like Chelsea has?
We haven't really. We haven't got into that level of detail with the women's football team yet. We've been pretty much focused on how do we resolve the first team issues really in that environment, and that's been pretty full time for the first 6 months.
So TBC.
Correct.
I've got to defend him a little bit. Wasn't he just through the door? How long had he been in when he did that interview?
It was quite a dismissive response, though, wasn't it?
I get all of that, and I understand that. And nobody wants to upset, anybody within their football club. But you're going into one of the biggest clubs in the world. You haven't won a league title since the old king died. Fans are baying. They need success. They need success now. And the transfer policies weren't great. He probably had a to-do list.
He's been there for 5 months. He's meant to be
hang on, let me finish.
Educated.
He is an educated businessman, but he had a to-do list as long as you're on, or as long as his studio. So that probably threw him, where he's probably like, look, I haven't sat down and even spoke about the women's team. And nobody wants to disrespect the female team in any football club. But at the end of the day, the team that's bringing in the mass amount of revenue into Manchester United worldwide, and I don't want to be unpopular saying this, is the men's team.
Yeah, definitely. I just think it doesn't help matters when you don't even know who your women's team captain is.
Get that?
You don't even know her name. It's going to come across as a bit disrespectful. And I do take your point in that sense. But when you look at the other big teams. You look at Arsenal, you look at Chelsea, you look at Brighton, you look at a lot of different teams that have men's and women's sides. They are pumping money into the women's side. And they're not turning a profit on that. You know, Manchester United just about turned a profit last season. More or less, it was quite more closer to breaking even, to be completely honest. But other clubs, they aren't making money on this. However, they continuously are pumping money into the women's side because they see this as an investment. I would ask you guys, Tony Bloom, a good owner, a smart businessman.
Fantastic owner.
Tony Bloom is pumping money into Brighton Women. He made the decision. I was at the press conference. He is building a stadium in Brighton
just for them,
for the women. Not just an extra stadium, but specifically designed for women.
And he must feel like he can make money out of that because Tony Bloom is not someone who's just going to chuck money away for its own sake for optics.
No, but Tony Bloom would also have that side where he thinks maybe it's the right thing to do. And in Ratcliffe's defence, he's not the only owner at Manchester United. There's a lot of other owners. There's a lot of other moving pieces. So I don't know the ins and outs of what Chelsea and Arsenal spent. I don't know what Liverpool spent. And I'll be saying I'm ignorant enough to know. I haven't done enough research into the kind of money all those clubs have spent. You're saying United haven't spent enough. I'm sure it's something they're going to have to address. The last 18 months, a lot of changes have happened at Man United, particularly with the men's team. And I'm sure the women's team, something they're going to say, well, this isn't looking good publicly.
Yeah.
It's got to be on the to-do docket. I know some of the people behind the scenes now. I've talked to quite a few of them this summer. I think they've got some great people at the club. And I think you'll see a change on that in time.
I think the issue is that sources are claiming that the club feel that spending is not sustainable in the women's game. So the focus is on sustainability with homegrown players, which is understood to fit the identity of developing youth, etc. And they want to go down this route.
Homegrown players is just code for doing it on the cheap, though, isn't it?
Well, exactly. This is my opinion, in that if you want to bring in young homegrown talent, you need to have something to show. And at the moment, they have absolutely nothing. Going into this new season, they have a fantastic goalkeeper. They have a captain who is a wonderful centre-back in Maya Letizier. They have Ella Toone, who is the biggest star at Manchester United. And they have Jess Park, who has been wonderful, who came over from Manchester City. Minus that, they have that one spine of decent players. There is nothing else to show that they really care about this club and that they are building around those players to actually achieve something. Because the way things are, London City Lionesses spending a lot of money, bringing in a 2-time Ballon d'Or winner. Tottenham.
We know Martin Simmons is in there. You'll have come across Martin. No, when he was at Southampton as chief exec. Well, he is certainly.
He's working for Michelle Young.
Yeah.
So the thing is, either Sir Jim Ratcliffe is going down this sustainable route as far as we understand, and he believes he is smarter than the Arsenal owners, than Tony Bloom, than Michelle Kang, etc., etc. He genuinely believes he's onto something. Or perhaps this is a situation where they realise that they don't want to put the money into it. It's not viable in Jim Ratcliffe's mind at the moment, and he just wants to cast it to the side.
So you said about the homegrown things, otherwise known as cheap. Well, one of the greatest clubs of the 21st century of producing homegrown talent from their academy was Manchester United. So I'd argue that, are they putting more money into the academy?
It depends.
Has he
where
got a
they
class
are
of
with
92
it.
then? Is it that we said
we don't know that.
Equivalent?
But in 10 years' time, they might.
It depends, because the senior women's side has only been established since 2018.
Sure.
A lot of young female players were at Manchester United, but then they got to the end of the road and it was see you later. Even someone like Ella Toone, she had to play football when she was younger at Blackburn, at Manchester City, because it wasn't there. So I just struggle to understand how Manchester United, what the plan is, and I would love to know, to make sure that this youth system is going to be so seamless that it can compete with Arsenal, with Chelsea, with these other big clubs. I'm just not too sure how they're going to do that. And when you think about it, what Manchester United women would need, about 10 million, which is what? Less than Mason Mount earns a year?
Per year. 10 million a year.
In 1 year,
right.
Yeah? So that's less than Mason Mount earns in a year, right?
Sure.
And I understand you can't just get rid of Mason Mount and take that money, but what they're asking for isn't hundreds and hundreds of millions. It's nothing on the men's side, and that would make such a massive difference to make Manchester United women be able to compete, so that they are competing with Arsenal, with Chelsea. So you're bringing those fans in, because young fans now, it's not always the club, sometimes it's the players. There will be people that supported Man United women when Alessia Russo was there. Now she's at Arsenal. People switch gears, and I just think that in order to carry on pushing this, you still need to be bringing in big players. You still need to be putting on a little bit of a show. And the way that things are going, to have a couple of decent players and that's about it, I don't know how they're going to even hold on to the fan base that they've got.
What is their fan base at the moment?
As in the size of it?
Yeah, what is it?
I mean, they play at a rugby stadium. You're getting, I think the capacity about 4,000 is the most that they've had. When they're going to Old Trafford and playing, they're getting, I wouldn't say any more than 10,000.
Right.
When you compare that to Arsenal, I go to Arsenal, I go match reporting, you're looking at 20, 30, 40,000 plus. I want to see Manchester United, Michael. I want to see them competing with that, and I understand it can't be done overnight, but stripping the club for parts, as it feels to me as a fan, is not going to get them there to be competing with Arsenal, with Chelsea, playing their games at Stamford Bridge, at the Emirates. It's such a chasm in difference.
Angelina, brilliant as always. You're back to host Transfer Insiders on Thursday?
Yes, on Thursday night.
Look forward to that. I should listen to you in the Algarve. Angelina Kelly there, bringing us back up to date on Mark Skinner's departure from the Manchester United women's team. You're listening to Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony in for White and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com.
Let's talk about Jack Grealish. Obviously, you bumped into him on holiday. Everton opted against a 50 million buyout option, but I saw in the Liverpool Echo, 83% of Everton fans want the club to sign Jack Grealish. Do you think he'll end up there?
I think there's a good chance he will, but I didn't understand the £50 million that Man City thought they were going to get. A year left on his contract. Like, you're never going to get that sort of money for Manchester City if they can get a fee at all. Because it's a club like Everton or wherever Jack signs for might be like the wages. Maybe we'll cover the wages for a year and then that's it. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. But seeing him over in Mallorca, he was fit. He was training at Real Mallorca's training ground because they were away in Marbella pre-season. He's hungry. He's looking after himself. He's doing all the right things. And, some players at 30, Jeff, he's won it all.
Yeah.
Doesn't need any more money. But he wants to play. He's addicted to football. He loves football. He would have been so jealous watching the players at the World Cup. He still wants to play at the highest level. And he showed that by the pre-season that he's had. So any reports as well that were fake reports you were hearing about being left out of Manchester City squad, no, I don't think he's clear to train for another 10 days.
talkSPORT News.
A very good afternoon. You're listening to talkSPORT here with your news headlines. I'm Amelia Beltrao. A review into the early prison release scheme has now taken 1,000 sex offenders off the list. However, those eligible include criminals convicted of manslaughter and domestic abuse. While Justice Secretary Alex Norris says if they exclude any more from the scheme, they will run out of prison places by the autumn. That could affect future victims.
That then means that an individual who, say, is subject to a domestic abuse protection order, a restraining order or controls on their domestic abuse would be perhaps getting arrested and going to a police station and then being bailed home again.
Well, Thames Valley Police have criticised the decision after the news that 2 of the killers of PC Andrew Harper could be released early. He died when he was dragged along behind a car in 2019. The force say the decision is demoralising for their officers. Elsewhere today, so many people are being diagnosed with autism, there's a risk it could become meaningless. That's the opinion of a leading expert on the condition. Professor Damuta Frith says the spectrum needs to be split into groups to recognise those with subtle symptoms and those who need lifelong care. And BB have come under fire after reporting their strongest profits in 4 years. The sharp jump comes as the company benefited from the rising prices during the Iran war. Campaigners say BP is profiteering from a climate crisis.
Talk Sport Sports Headlines with Bostik. For professional grade sealants with easy application and a perfect finish, pros trust Bostik.
Ben Stokes says he'd love to be England coach one day, and Arsene Wenger has distanced himself from Infantino's now shunned sell-off plan. I'll be back at 1.
We are going to get a lot of text for you in the last part of the programme. I want your views on all things EFL.
There you go.
You've been
sensible people.
You've been getting the family to message in.
Just the message.
Some questions.
A few.
I want to talk a little bit about Scottish football now. Of course, returned this weekend. Celtic, as we were talking to BetMGM about earlier, beat Dundee 1-0 in their SPFL opener. Here's Martin O'Neill on their opening night performance.
We won, which is the most important thing. Opening game of the season for us. I thought we were pretty rusty. I also felt that overall, though we did create and should have scored a number of goals, the overall performance, I didn't think we were far from at our best. You know, so when you consider the games that we played high intensity last season, I thought the first half we didn't have that intensity. Very slow build up. And if you have a slow build-up, it means that opposition teams can read you quite easily. So we had to try and force the issue in the second half, which I think we did, got the goal. And overall, we won, created a number of chances. But in all honesty, it was just the win was the most important thing.
Martin O'Neill speaking to Celtic TV after that 1-0 victory against Dundee in their Scottish League title opener. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? We're already talking about competitive league games in Scotland. Doesn't say much, does it, that the SFA scheduled the season to start now when there was a World Cup. They clearly didn't have much faith in Steve Clarke's team to go deep into that draw.
Oh, that's harsh, but yeah, it is mad. I mean,
fair.
I mean, some of the teams have been at it for a month.
Yeah,
like playing pre-season games,
and
camps,
League Cup
during the World Cup.
Yeah,
right, but it's still going on, which is bizarre. I am amazed at that, to be fair.
Is it too much too soon? And we've got more football tonight. There's Champions League third qualifying rounds. Is it too early? I feel like we need another break.
You feel like it?
Yeah, I do.
You've been working, obviously. Well, they call it work. You were out in New York, obviously, the World Cup. But look, if you're a sports fan, you're probably missing your football since the World Cup ended. So I read the other day it was nearly 3 weeks ago, the World Cup final.
Yeah.
Like, time flies.
Yeah.
So now, look, we've all had us inside the EFL, who work in it, haven't played since the start of May. So we're ready.
Are you chomping it a bit now?
Yeah, really looking forward to it starting again. It's been 3 months. So the World Cup and all the distractions been great, but now you just want to get back to your kind of, day job.
On the subject of the Champions League, I mentioned they're the third qualifying round. Obviously, English teams don't have to worry about that. We've got 5 teams, though, in the Champions League proper. Arsenal, City, United, Aston Villa. Who do you think is best equipped? Liverpool. He's left off the list, the producer, but Liverpool are in the Champions League, Dan. Don't annoy our esteemed guest. Who do you think is best equipped to go deep into the competition?
Yeah, the obvious answer would be Arsenal and Man City. I think, I said Arsenal fans would love to go, back-to-back, winning the league. Some of them would be like, we've never won the Champions League before. Man City have the pedigree. We're not sure about Maresca and how to, what effect he's going to have post-Guardiola. But you like to think with the talent at his disposal that they'll be competing on all fronts. But And then you can't look past PSG winning it for a third time, can you? But then you've got obviously the great Jose Mourinho. There's so many different,
money, haven't they, Real
so
Madrid?
many stories for the Champions League. So look, I think Arsenal and City go deep, and they think semi-finals. They'd be very happy. Unfortunately, with Liverpool and with the squad dynamic and where they are with injuries, I can't see them going deep in the Champions League. I think the priority of Areola is going to be let's have a right go domestically and then nick a domestic cup, but I can't see them going semi-finals, final of the Champions League. I just can't see it happening.
There's an argument, actually, their better performances last season tended to come in the Champions League.
Yeah, until they played some of the better teams, and then we were suddenly playing 5 at the back, worried about the opposition, which isn't Liverpool's way. So let's see. But for me, if you're asking a question, it's City, Arsenal, in that order.
And Kevin Nolan was in that chair yesterday suggesting that whichever English team represents us in the Conference League should win it, and obviously it's
every year
this time around.
Every year, and it'd be great. Do you know what? I know Steve Parish really well, so seeing him winning trophies has been brilliant. I also know the Blooms. For Tony Bloom to win a trophy, for what he's done,
would that be reward?
Fantastic reward, absolutely. Because you look at that as an owner and go, Parish has had his payoff with a couple of trophies recently. Wouldn't it be wonderful for Tony Bloom, for the money and time he's put in, the sacrifices, to end up winning a European trophy and maybe a domestic trophy? That would be fantastic.
And as disappointed as they were not to get Europa League football, because they were in contention for that on the final day of the season, like Palace, they've got a better chance and they've won the Conference League than if they were in the Europa.
100%. Crystal Palace can win it. Brighton can win it. And by the way, you'd probably say Brighton have got pretty big squad, and the way they recruit, they would have to be one of the favourites to win it.
I've got a question for you. We're going to take more of these after the break, but this is Justin, the Southampton fan. He wants your view on the FA delaying the decision on Tonderecker. We know that he's been charged now over those breaches of spying regulations. But here we are, Southampton about to play their first game. They're in the League Cup against Colchester at the weekend, and we still don't know if Tonderecker is going to get a fine, if he's going to get a suspension. Should this not have been dealt with by now?
My biggest complaint about all this stuff is bureaucracy and the time it takes for decisions to be made. They were quick enough to throw them out, because
they had that time pressure.
There was urgency, and I think with all these kind of decisions, there should be a time limit on when you've got to come up with. It's like the charges against Premier League clubs. We had an issue with a few years ago, the EFL, and it went on a year, and it was something that could have been done inside of a month. I just think that the process for all of these different types of events and things that go on takes too long. And going into a new season, Southampton need to know: is our guy going to be sat on the sideline, or are we going to have to bring in a temporary manager for a period of time? So it's dragging on too long.
Because we can't have a situation, can we, where he's in the dugout this weekend in the League Cup and then all of a sudden he gets suspended.
With all due respect, if I were his club in June, I would have gone, look, we've put ourselves on the sword. We're guilty. We admit it. Can you let us know? But
I think they pretty much did do
right. Well, can you let us know? Because we've got a pre-season camp. We've got to recruit players. We like our manager, but if he's gone for 12 months, I'm going to have to sit him down and I'm going to have to hire another manager for 12 months. What are you going to do? Have his assistants run the club? So it really puts them, the club, in a difficult situation, never mind the players. So, what's taking so long?
And they've been pretty busy in the transfer market.
Yeah.
If you're a player and you're in conversation with Southampton, you want to know if the manager is going to be on the sidelines.
Yes and no, because I find nowadays a lot of players don't really care.
They're not.
What I mean? Really? No, I think it's down to their agent, their money, or, whatever their dad thinks. So that's what it comes down to a lot of the time. Do you know what I mean? It's not always about the manager. People think that, but really, I think most players now, managers last a year, 18 months. So, but you're right. That club needs to be able to move forward. They made a massive error. They're paying for the error. Now they need to know the final punishment. And that manager, for his own livelihood, needs to know the final punishment. It's dragged on too long.
More questions for Darragh in the final part of the programme. 81089 if you've got a burning query for the Peterborough owner and chairman. Reminder, Saturday Fight Night returns to DAZN this Saturday. Callum Simpson and Troy Williamson meet once again. A huge domestic rematch with unfinished business to settle after their first meeting. Deliver plenty of drama. Join DAZN Ultimate for 185 plus fight nights and a minimum 12 plus pay-per-view events every year, including Itoma against Hrgovic and Ryan Garcia against Conor Benn, all included at no extra cost.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Sign up now at dazn.com/boxing.
A reminder, you are listening to Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony in for White and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go.
my issue is, and you say he's in a minority of one at the moment, I'm not sure he is because, we haven't seen the African Federation, for example, come out against him as yet. And you know what? I've got this feeling he won't be forced to resign because he's shown his vanity. He's shown this astonishing lack of self-awareness. It's absolutely beyond belief that I think he will be so difficult to prize out of his position. David Bernstein's going to be on later on, and he will tell us how difficult it was to get rid of Sepp Blatter. And I think we're in a similar situation.
A good point. Yeah, look, I totally understand that. But I know that he lost a couple of seniors, people in senior positions. I think over the last few days at FIFA, people have resigned. And I just always feel when that sort of stuff starts happening, when others that a few weeks ago were reasonably close to him, all of a sudden have now just gone in the middle of the night in a puff of smoke, they're out the door. And I'm sure others would be tempted to follow. I just feel that I don't think it's going to happen quickly, Jeff, whatever's going to happen. I'm sure it's going to be pretty protracted and drag out over the months ahead. But I do think eventually this will end with someone stepping forward, a credible contender that they feel could take FIFA forward in a different direction. And I'm pretty sure eventually something will happen and he'll probably stand down.
Hurtling towards 1 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Alex Crook alongside Darragh MacAnthony just for the last few minutes of the programme. So it's time to pick out who's been the real deal this week, all thanks to Selco Builders Warehouse.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. For the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in branch or view online at selcobw.com.
And I want to give some flowers to Jordan Henderson, having completed a move from Brentford to Chelsea, signing a 2-year contract at Stamford Bridge. He had an arrangement with Brentford that he could terminate his deal there for no transfer fee at the end of last season. And it's been quite a climb back to prominence, isn't it, when you think about where he was when he left Saudi Arabia, went to the Dutch League as well. His reputation took a little bit of a kicking with that move to Saudi, but he seems to have rebuilt it.
I don't know why, but it was everyone would have taken the money. But from going from his little camper van following England around during the Euros to suddenly being part of the squad, going to Brentford, and then obviously moving to Chelsea. Yeah, listen, fair play to him. He's a fascinating individual. You know, obviously ex-Liverpool captain, did brilliant there, and maybe we moved him on too quickly.
Yeah.
As he's, you know,
would you have taken him back this summer for a bit of
No,
experience?
probably not. No, because you look at the midfield of Liverpool and whatever else, you need legs in there. It would have been a worry. But I can understand why Chelsea are signing him. They're gonna have a player in that dressing room that's going to help. It's probably what they've been lacking. You know, they got him and Welbeck. It was really, you know, that's a train. They're dressing room signings. Welbeck will probably contribute more on the pitch than Henderson will, but they are dressing room signings. They've spent whatever money to get that dressing room in order.
And that was the main reason he was part of the England squad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know he did get some minutes in the group stage, and obviously he suffered that freak injury after the win in Mexico. But the main reason Thomas Tuchel recalled him was to get the dressing room in order.
Bring them as a player in 2 years' time. So it'd be fascinating to see if he goes into management, becomes a coach, manager, because the way people speak about him, I've never met him personally, but everything I hear from people, he just seems to be the type of guy that's, you know, on the way to being a coach or a manager. So fair play to him. What a move.
Yeah, and we've spoken a bit about Chelsea and their sort of changing philosophy.
Yeah.
Maxence Lacroix as well brings that Premier League
A bit younger than the other two, but
yeah.
yeah. I mean, what is he, 25, 26?
Yeah. But does it look a better blend now than maybe they've had in the last couple of seasons?
I think Chelsea are in a really good place. They've got a manager that's close to being elite, who's obviously done phenomenal in Germany, had a blip in Spain, which can happen at Real Madrid. I think he'll have a point to prove. He's played in the Premier League. He knows the philosophy. He's not a head coach. He's now manager. Chelsea have recruited really well, like they always do, I think, this summer. They've blended that little bit of experience. They've signed, 7, 8 players. A couple of them are older. Majority of them are still younger. Even Lacroix is still 25. He's not even in his prime. So Chelsea are going to be very good this season.
And that was our pick for this week's Real Deal with Selco Builders Warehouse. For all the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in branch or view online at selcobw.com.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's Real Deals at selcobw.com.
So just for the last couple of minutes, we'll flatter Darragh's ego. We'll get some of the questions from listeners, 81089, if you'd like to take part. Nick has said, what does Darragh think of Boreham Wood in the National League rejecting a £1 million offer for Abdul Malik?
I love Danny's cojones. Danny's the owner. Barry goes back a long way with him. I've met him. Runs a brilliant club. I think he wants his son to have that club in the EFL. Hence why, you know, Danny's a very wealthy man. Hence why he can say no. And he's having a right go. So the flip to that would be that obviously the boy is turning, I think, is it 25, you know, this season. And obviously he's been the best player by a country mile at non-league. And the player seems to be pretty calm about staying, which is fascinating nowadays because 9 times out of 10, the player is aggressively pushing to move out of there and go upwards. So you want Boreham Wood to win promotion this year. They're very unfortunate last year. I was gutted for them. So, and for Danny and for what he's done for his club and put the time in, if that's his last furrow to win promotion to the EFL and then hand it to a family member, that would be wonderful for him.
Yeah, that £1 million bid from Jewel Gardens over in Sweden. Dan says, I'm a Bolton fan. Our signings for the upcoming championship season have been pretty underwhelming. Is this likely to be because we're waiting for Premier League and Championship clubs to get sorted before offering players out on loan? Or is the gap between League One and the Championship larger than people think from a financial perspective, and our owners are just being judicious with our finances?
Yeah, there's a massive gap. And you could say Lincoln are probably the same, being, you know, judicious, as you just said. I would say it's a bit of both. One, it's very expensive to sign players in the Championship. Bolton are a big club. They will do some business. They also have, I think, recent investment come into the club as well. Sharon runs the place there. Great lady. I think they'll be okay. And look, for all the fans out there who are having a lot of anxiety over the lack of signings, and yes, I'm talking about my own fans as well, there's a long way to go. The season hasn't started yet. The tree hasn't even got shaking yet. That tree will start shaking now with a lot of Premier League clubs arriving back from their American tours and their European tours. Players are going to be available. Championship clubs then will sell players, make them players available. It's just a trickle-down effect. So that is going to happen. It will be a busier August than ever before.
Andy's an EFL fan. He's interested to know Darragh's view on Lincoln's forthcoming season. Obviously, losing Jack Moylan will be a blow.
Great player.
A couple more signings, especially in the forward areas, to really compete in the Championship.
Yeah, two things you need in the champ. You definitely need one of your players to be a prolific goal scorer to give you a chance of staying in that league, and two, you need a great defence. Lincoln are losing a great. If they are losing him, he's a wonderful player. What a talent he was last year. Kudos to the recruitment department, and I hope they got 5 or 6 million for him. Really well run club. New ownership, I think, recently. Liam, who runs the ship in there with all the staff, again, good people. Look, it's going to be tough, I'm not going to lie. Been in that league recently, it's not easy. If Lincoln stay in the league, you know, you would always say a club that size, our size, anytime they stay in the champ, it's a miracle.
And finally, Jill, an EFL fan, do sporting directors have a place in the lower leagues? I'm sure, having worked with Barry Fry for a number of years, you're going to say yes, aren't you?
Yeah, I think it's the way of the modern game. I think too many owners come in without any experience, get fleeced. I think they need a credible sporting director or technical director or mythology director, whatever you're calling them nowadays. Everyone's got new names for them. Mine's dof@theposh.com. That's Barry's email address, director of football. One of the best in business, and he's been with me 20 years. I think all good clubs need that kind of structure.
Yeah, what character he is as well. The EFL returns this weekend. We've got the first round of the League Cup. Plenty of live commentaries on talkSPORT and talkSPORT 2. Darragh, last time we're together this summer. Are you sad?
No, but you enjoy yourself in Portugal. Have fun. Make sure you relax with the family, and I'll see you on the other side. I'm sure you'll be texting for transfer gossip.
Well, you normally want to do that, but yeah, look forward to it. It's been a pleasure. This was Alex Crook and Darragh MacAnthony on talkSPORT. Paul and Andy on the way in just a few minutes.
The good news about Areola is he went through this with Bournemouth. He lost the whole back four.
Yeah.
And he had some late signings at Bournemouth, and look how they turned out. And look what he did. And I'm pretty sure with the Liverpool ownership, I can be critical of any ownership, including my own, that over the years, they've spent money, and they've won a couple of league titles. Last year, they spent nearly £500 million. You could argue that maybe they overspent in some areas and should have spent in others.
But that's hindsight. Nobody was criticising the window.
100% everyone thought we'd walk the league. Yeah. And this is football 12 months later where everyone thinks now we're the worst top 6 team in the Premier League. So I dare say Liverpool will look very different by the time the window closes.
Let's hear from Dominic Szoboszlai, shall we? He was speaking ahead of that recent friendly against Leeds, and he discussed the Liverpool squad depth.
I think I can talk from everybody's side that we want to be successful this season. It's a long term because obviously we have a new manager. The team has been changed, and it's maybe not in a couple of months, but in the long term, I think it will work out.
In the long term, it will work, says Dominic.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not a mug. He's just signed a new long-term deal. He sees what's going on. And by the way, they've got a lot of young talent in that squad. I know everyone's trying to say they need 10 new pieces or whatever else, but they still have a lot of good young players.
Feels like it could be a big year for Engamoa, bearing in mind they're trying to sign wide players, but they haven't yet managed to get anyone.
He will be a sensation this year. I'll make a prediction that he'll win Young Player of the Year in the Premier League, without a doubt. And they're probably more confident because of him and because he can play left and right side.